our guests tonight have put a lot of their heart and soul, and probably safe to say blood, sweat, and tears into what I think is easily one of the top 10 UFO/alien incidents ever.
Mm-hmm.
The Lonnie Zamora incident. It's an event that happened in 1964. I want to say, was it April?
April
It was
24th.
Yeah, April.
Mm-hmm.
April 24th? Really?
Mm-hmm.
So a day after my birthday, 3 years preceding me. 3 years, I finally got a topic on here that's older than me. So the Zamora case is very interesting. And we're going to talk a lot about that with our guests, Tony Angelillo and Ben Moss.
Angiola.
And I said it wrong, didn't I? Angiola. Angiola.
I like
whatever their names are.
You know, look, see, they were at first behind the scenes.
Oh, wait a minute. They switched places.
Tony was on the left, Ben was on the right, and then I switched the name. Now they switched the name.
Flipped it all over. Yeah.
But guys, we can do that, so we just messed them up.
Guys, welcome to the show. Thanks for doing this tonight. How is everyone?
Good.
Yeah, doing well in times of pandemics.
Yeah, that's something that I'm still not quite comfortable with. My kids are back in school, thankfully, but I'm still not quite in this freaking year 2021. It's almost over. I really haven't caught up with all the crap that's been going on. It's been driving me nuts. I just turned the TV off.
Yeah, it's depressing to watch the news for sure. I try to avoid it, but it's for me. I know I don't really go anywhere except to the gym and to the store. And we were recently, went to the MUFON conference in Vegas and just to network and see old friends. And we ended up speaking there because they had somebody that didn't show up. So that's been the only trip we've taken, that I've taken in about a year and a half.
Well, that's a good trip.
Yeah.
Was the turnout as well as previous years? Were people really just trying to get the heck out?
It was pretty strong. It was full.
The room was full, and I counted the rows at one point because I wanted to see how many people were in there. But we thought it was about 500. So it was a good turnout.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good. We went to the Ohio Bigfoot Conference a few months ago, and it was actually pretty entertaining. I really didn't have a clue how many people to expect. I've heard anywhere from like 1,000 to 5,000 people in the past. Of course, it's not a massive event, but there were probably 200-300, and that's pretty strong, I'd say, for an event during this time. So, but not that many.
I mean, it's Sin City, it's Las Vegas, and so, but because correct me if I'm wrong, guys, the one in 2020, it was canceled, right?
Yeah.
So
there were a few Walking Dead in Vegas, but you see them around casinos also. The Walking Dead.
I think next year is going to be Colorado.
Yeah, they're going to Colorado next year, and then back to Ohio, where they moved their headquarters to.
Oh, Tiffany.
I'm gonna crash Sierra next year.
Or Colorado, yeah. We might have to talk about that.
Denver,
Well, guys, before we get started, give us a little bit about you. Ben, start with you, because you guys both, you're the UFO guys, but how did you all come about? I mean, what's the resume that goes with the title, the UFOs guys?
Well, we met at a networking group and found we had a common interest in UFOs, and found out we were both in MUFON. I think we were both field investigators, and then eventually Tony was promoted to assistant state director, and I was the chief field investigator for Virginia. So I've been into it for a long time, ever since I saw a Walter Cronkite special on TV with my dad, and kind of dating myself. But So I just started looking into stuff. I'd get all the magazines. I was a big comic book nerd as a kid, so I'd also pick up any UFO magazines I could see besides my usual Marvel and DC haul. And we've done a lot of cases, and we still have taken on some cases, independently. But the biggest accomplishment lately was the book that we just wrote, Not of This World, the Socorro UFO incident from 1964. So that's a little bit about me.
For me, it was high school, and like a lot of people, you pick up a book or somebody that you trust gives you something amazing in terms of like a ufological book, and that sent me in a direction that I never thought I'd be at this point. So I thought I was going to race motorcycles, but ever since I think it was like we met. It was like around 2000 and. Was it 10 maybe?
10, yeah.
2010 in a Business Networking International group. I was a member of MUFON since the 90s, and then started doing investigations with Ben. And fortunately, our friend Ray Stanford is just across the pond, about an hour and a half away. And he found out about an article that we wrote for the MUFON Journal about missing footage of the Socorro site taken by Elizabeth
Warren.
Elizabeth Warren. And so Ben set out to, we talked to James Fox about it at this, in 2015 at the MUFON conference there.
2012 conference.
Was it? I thought it was 15. Or that was the next one, wasn't it? I think it was 12, 2012.
Yeah, that's the one in Cherry Hill.
Yeah, we went back again.
Yeah.
So it was interesting, though, once we found the footage and we put it in our presentation, and it's been interesting because we've been out there 3 times to the sites.
Yeah, 3 times. Me 4 times because I did a show with Ben Hansen called UFO Witness. That was episode 7, so that was pretty. I like that. Did a good job. But
you're going through my notes.
Yeah, we got latched onto it, seeing James Fox talk about it, and thought he was going to show this footage I'd seen on the TV show. I think it was Sightings is eventually where it showed up. But
what year was that? Do you remember what year? Because I remember
that was
seeing
about 2013.
Oh, you mean the episode, or
yeah?
What are we talking about?
The 80s, wasn't it? Like
there was sightings.
The Sightings episode.
Yeah, I think it was 78, 79, but
I thought it was 80.
It was really hard to find, and then finally everybody denied actually owning it, but said they could sell it to us and for outrageous sums of money. And then eventually another investigator said, I recorded that. I'll put it on a CD and send it to you. And that was the search for the lost Socorro footage. We had 2 covers on the MUFON Journal because we talked about looking for it, and then we came back once we found it and then gave a link to show it. We showed it in our presentation.
And what's really interesting about this case too that we'll talk about later is today we're seeing a lot of tic-tac shaped things, and they probably didn't know what tic-tacs were back then, but it was a very similar shape. And it correlates to a lot of sightings around the world, what people call tic-tac UFO, because it is an oblong or egg-shaped craft.
Right. Yeah.
And it's white,
like the mint.
Right.
Right. I'm curious now. I got to Google this. When did the
tic-tacs come out? Yeah.
I'll Google it.
Well, they've been, in the book put together, there's a whole chapter on egg shape. They called it football, egg shape, bathtub shaped. Some people say it looked like a floating bathtub, and you're still describing an elliptical type object, which is close to the tic-tac.
And depending on the perspective on the ground,
the
angle.
If you're seeing it on end, it looks like around like a balloon because you're seeing it on end. But there were a lot of
describing the same craft.
Yeah, there were a lot of them at this time. The one landed at Holloman Air Force Base, and so I wanted to put together a whole chapter about the Leveland egg-shaped craft and the La Madra case. We're all connected to this somehow, and it just showed that in 64, April 24th, in that whole time frame, a couple months before and a couple of months after, there was this type of UFO flying all over Arizona and New Mexico, and New York had a case. And so it's interesting that it's kind of return in some form or another.
Yeah, people tend to think that it was just a one-time
One-off,
event, and they don't realize it has a whole history prior and after this particular event. Yeah.
And that's a good point too, because the case itself, is kind of focused on that one day, and you're right. I don't hear a lot of stories about what preceded it, and what has happened after, or what happened immediately after. But for the record, the Mint 1969, so no influence, from that description in 94, or excuse me, 1964. What about this case, guys, that that you all gravitated to? I mean, what was the significance or rhyme and reason why you really?
Yeah, I think well, I mean, prior to Ray, because that we were very, very, very fortunate to have Ray in our back pocket, so to speak. We made many trips to his house over 5 years, and we've been meaning to get over there since COVID, but because of that, and he's had some recent medical concerns that we haven't been able to get over there. There's always a new rock to turn over, literally, at his place, and more cases and more things to study. That he's just always revealing something new there. But with Socorro specifically, what intrigued me first off and foremost, and for many people as well, is the fact that it was a respectable police officer who was just minding his own business, doing his job, and then all of a sudden this unlikely event takes place. Unlike at the time, like any other, but since then there have been many police encounters.
Close encounter of the third kind.
Yeah. This is probably one of the first of the police officer, and then there was a case in Italy which was really good too.
Yeah,
there's the big part about him being a police officer is that he's supposed to be a very good observer of behavior and surroundings and what's going on, right? So so he was actually sort of chasing a speeder through the desert or through his region, and got distracted by something in the sky. What exactly did he see that took his attention away from this person speeding through town?
Yeah, Ben and I we actually recreated the whole event while we were there several times, and it was really, if anybody were to investigate this case and do the same thing as we did, you'd probably have a lot of fun doing it. But because it's a very small town, and we imagined sitting on patrol and a speeder going by, and we went the same path that they took, and we turned off the road just like Lonnie did. However, today, due to weathering, everything's come down a little bit. The hills aren't so peakish and things like that. And it was still, due to rain erosion and rocks and ruts, it's still a real perilous path to take. And we tried it with our rental car, nearly destroyed it. So the description that Lonnie gave us in a brand new police car, and back then it was really hard to come by. So he wouldn't have risked himself or his police car chasing this, what he thought was a plane coming down. He saw like flames coming across, blue flame, and a roaring sound. He knew of the dynamite shack that was off in the distance. He was afraid that might blow up, so he's gunning his car and he's trying to get up this very steep dirt hill off the beaten path. He had to let the speeder go, of course, and we'll tell you a little bit more about what others saw. When Lonnie finally got to the top of this hill, he was able to look out of his window, and he saw what appeared to be an egg-shaped craft kind of tilted downwards in the front. It had, you can only see a tripod, but there were actually 4 legs, the one from behind, and it was tilted down. And what I believe, this craft was either malfunctioning, maybe lost some parts, because these 2 figures in white coveralls, as noted by Lonnie Zamora, and he can tell how tall they were because they were next to this bush. And he knew how tall the bushes were, and later he would go and see where the head height was next to the bush where this blue flame from the craft had knifed it in half. He saw these 2 creatures looking under the craft as though to see what something was wrong or something like this. Lonnie proceeds to get closer, and by the time he reaches the craft, he's no further than, after he got out of his car, of course, about 30 feet from the craft. And there he saw what appears to be an inverted V in red, a red insignia with 3 bars through it. And in my opinion, now, I think of, if you have an iPhone or a smartphone, when the screen is off, you don't see anything. And then when you touch the button, you know how it illuminates something. Imagine if this craft would illuminate this red insignia if it had a problem, you know, and after it's working again, it goes away. So
Tony, is this the image that you were talking about?
Yeah, that's
Because I know that there was some discussion over the 3 lines and their placement within the inverted
there are
V.
several iterations.
Mhm.
The known, I want to say decoy, is the umbrella one. It looks all fanciful, and that's not what was on there. Even though he signed it,
There was a reason for that, though. Can you explain the reason why there was a discrepancy between those 2 shapes and the insignia that he saw?
yeah, it was even corroborated by the son of Lieutenant Holder, who said that, even Holder said, the reason that we obfuscated the symbol is in case there was a hoaxer out there. We want to get a legitimate report of someone else seeing the same thing. Now, this craft, before it reached Socorro, it started in Albuquerque 30 minutes prior to getting, they got phone calls in, prior to Lonnie Zamora being called on, him calling on the radio and all this. And dispatch was getting phone calls from Albuquerque saying that there's this object and this is what it looks like, and it's heading in that way, and we're getting calls.
Were people seeing it from the air? Do you know
Correct.
if anybody had seen it from the air?
Yeah, we interviewed several people that go way back, and I'll have Ben talk about this one woman who sat on her porch and saw it coming right down over the water, and we traced the path that this craft allegedly took. And if you were, say, an extraterrestrial in a craft that's having some trouble, you don't want to be seen, and you have to fly low for whatever reason. Why not chase the river where there's trees surrounding you, and you can pretty much hide until they crossed over Opal Grinder's gas station, nearly taking out a tourist because they were flying so low. Before they landed, they had to land either to reset their engines or what have you. And the reason I say that is because they weren't on the ground very long. The entire incident was minutes from the time Lonnie saw them and he heard the door shutting like a hatch, the blue flame coming back out. He hits the ground, the blue flame knifes this bush in half. The craft gets about 20 feet, 30 feet in the air, goes completely silent, starts making its way near the dynamite shack, but kind of at an angle, didn't really go over it. And then it starts to hit supersonic speeds as Chavez, which was Lonnie's partner, finally had shown up, and we'll talk more about that.
Yep. When Ben, when you were on that episode, UFO Witness with Ben Hansen, which to me was a great episode. Actually, shout out to Ben. I really dug that whole series. That episode that you were in, you were there with Ben, and there was these rocks. They're still there, right?
Yeah, the erosion's really bad there, but the rocks that were circled, the 4 imprints, are still there. The one thing that, and I like Ben a lot, I just wanted to correct, was when they mentioned the radiation on the show, I had told them at the beginning that since it's volcanic rock in that area, there is uranium deposits. So we got a high reading inside the 4 circles, but we also got high readings outside. So that's just the uranium in the ground. They kind of tied it into.
They left that part out.
Yeah. I felt kind of bad because it looked like I was going along with it when I explained as soon as he pulled out the Geiger counter that it's going to get readings everywhere because there's uranium everywhere. There's a huge mine. Perlite Mill is where the object went towards. That's a big mining operation, and now there's a lot of top secret bases around there also.
You can't get near it.
Well, I get that because, I mean, like I said, you've been doing this or been on this incident for many years, and you're putting out books and your stories and stuff, all of your work.
Now, you've dedicated about 5 years to this topic specifically, right?
Yeah, it was kind of it's like Roswell. The more you dig, the more you keep coming away from any normal explanation of what happens, because the evidence just starts. You start with this big funnel and eventually get smaller and smaller until it's pointing to the not of this earth. That's why I titled the book "Not of This Earth," because there was really no other conclusion to come to when you put all the facts together. There was, from your question earlier, there was a jet pilot that said he spotted the craft in the air with a symbol on it. And it did land. There was an egg-shaped craft that landed at Holloman Air Force Base, I think 2 or 3 days before the war incident. And one guy emptied his pistol at it, I think. But apparently it left the same 4 indentations, the same burn in the middle where the blue flame was of some type of exotic engine. And we think it had 2 engines. The blue flame was to land and take off, but then when Lonnie witnessed it, that cut off and the craft was silent and then flew away exceeding supersonic speed. So 1 engine to land, but 1 engine to really book if it needed to.
Pardon my ignorance here. Let me go back real quick. You mentioned it. There was a time where an incident where one landed. It landed at the Air Force Base.
Did you yeah. We are on Amazon. So if you Google "Not of This Earth," the Socorro incident, I have a whole chapter on all the landings, on all because we went through all these newspaper clippings and just did searches for egg-shaped craft, and it was from 1940s all the way to the 1970s is the time frame.
And Cheryl Costa also pulled a report.
And Cheryl Costa, who pulled some data for us about that's the last chapter in the book, is her data about egg-shaped craft. So I have a chapter called "The Nature of Lonnie Zamora," just so people can understand who the witness was. I think we covered just about everything you could cover about.
And also we covered the hoax theories.
The lunar lander theory.
Right.
I mean, the good thing is Ray Stanford was the original investigator in 1964. He's in that classic picture that the CIA always shows of Lonnie and Ray standing looking at the hole. So he even thought the book was really well done because it was an update of his book, Socorro Saucer in the Pentagon Pantry. It just brought all the new information together. Rob Mercer from Ohio MUFON, he found the files on Craigslist that were all about Socorro. There were 183 pages in that file about Socorro. And
what was the purpose of that? Because I know that you had mentioned having all of these Craigslist papers from some person in particular. What was the main content of these papers that were found?
Oh, one of them was a letter from Holder's son. Was that not in there?
That was Ray's. That was actually Ray's. But it was Blue Book files and notes from Blue Book.
Some of the Blue Book photographs are really neat. We have those also.
Yeah, I have the original top secret shot of the landing site, black and white photo. But it was notes taken by the,
How bad were those notes from the
There was bad spelling, and it just showed you that a lot of people did a lot of work. They actually gathered their own newspaper clippings about the event, trying to figure out what it was, because it's still listed as an unknown. And they tried to throw it off as the lunar lander, which is ludicrous. We have a whole chapter about that.
I just remember something. Ray told us about that beer truck driver family that came forward and said that, like, our grandfather drove a beer truck that saw the Socorro saucer, and they're trying to chase that down. And
we found a couple of other witnesses that had never talked to anybody before. Put it in the book. Found a physical scientist that ran into Lonnie in the 80s. And when Lonnie found out at a gift shop in Socorro, when Lonnie Zamora found out that he worked in radiation because he had a radiation badge on, he told him the whole thing, took him to the site and asked him, look, am I going to get sick eventually from being exposed to this blue plasma type flame? And the guy said, basically, if you haven't gotten sick by now, you're probably fine. And so that was somebody that had never come. His name is Michael Moore. He's a physical scientist. And several other people that just told us things, because people in the town knew this was happening, and there were other landings. There was a landing that said near the reservoir. We found where that was, but people
did they have the same sort of situation when it came to the 4 legs? Were they similar sites?
Yeah, all the reported landings was the same triangle.
They had the same distance, more or less, in the placement of the prints.
The object was about 16 or 19 feet long. Hynek had estimated And I think some other scientists had said that the imprints in Socorro were estimated to be about from a 9-ton object.
Well, in this being in 64, there's still a lot of people that are still alive that have probably seen or know of someone who has seen this. Fair to say?
Yeah, that's why people seem to, every now and then, someone new that has.
Someone pops up. Yeah, it's.
Oh, the lady, the porch lady that we were talking about.
The porch lady. There was a
The
lady.
porch lady. That sounds like an ominous name.
She had passed, but
Yeah, that's bad.
when the object was first seen by the people that showed up at Opal Grinder's gas station and said the object almost hit their car. Before that is where this lady was sitting on a porch, and she told the townspeople this, and the townspeople shared a lot of stories. The thing about Socorro is a lot of people never left there. They've been there all their lives. They might have even graduated from the tech company there. A lot of engineers were work as bartenders and stuff. But she said she was sitting facing the reservoir, and she said the thing that Lonnie described, I saw it. It came down the reservoir and made a turn and headed towards where the witnesses in the car saw it, towards Opal Grinder's gas station. That witness saw the thing pass, almost hit his car, and then he saw Lonnie begin the chase after it. So you have this whole chain of events that we just extended by finding out that this woman had been sitting on her porch and saw this thing coming down the river. And obviously was in some kind of trouble. And the Socorro landing site is the depression. So if you're standing in the site, you've got a kind of a ridge line all around you. So it's a good place to land. And
it's kind of like it's an arroyo. It's like an indention. The interesting thing is that acoustics, when you have a loud roaring engine and the sound bounces around, it's gonna, it'll bounce around, but then whatever the highest wall opposing that last reverberation is going to send the sound in that direction. So you get hundreds of people saying that they heard it. They probably shouldn't have heard it, but the acoustics could have bounced in that direction. And then the ones who should have heard it probably didn't hear it because the wall of dirt was pushing the sound the other way. And so that was something that Ray had to get into a long time ago and explain to people and get scientists to explain that. Yeah.
One of the big things that always confuses me is the idea of so many crashed UFOs. If this one looked like it was having some kind of problem, we know that Lonnie actually claims to have seen 2 entities that were very short, child-sized beings that were outside. And you said that they were looking at the underside of the craft like there may have been a problem. What do you think is the reason why these crafts would potentially come so far just to crash? Obviously, not specifically this one, because this one lifted back up and shot back out into God knows where. But what do you think the reason for these crashes and strange landings? What do you think the point is?
Is it the model because it's a lemon? I mean,
yeah, you never know, right? I mean, we've seen, we've all seen UFOs for a long time, photographs, stories, and whatnot. There seems to be, in my estimation, some form of evolution taking place as we evolve with our vehicles and technology. They're evolving with theirs, which leads me to believe that. Yeah, it leads me to believe that not all ETs are just getting here. There's a good bit of them that have been here. There are places on possibly Saturn, possibly the moon, the moons of Jupiter. Who knows? They could be out there. They could have been there all this time, all along,
right.
Pre-Diluvian and so on. And so you can't, not all pizzas are the same. So, you got your Italian flavors, and then you got your Canadian ones, your Alaskan ones, and it's like, they're all over the place.
Look how many spacecraft we crashed. We crashed about 6 into Mars.
Right.
And,
that's a great point.
Because
you get to a point with your technologies that you say, okay, we're capable of getting to Mars. But it's still like the that first model that you got.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who's to say that's not the case with the ETs out there that they and then
what if they're just cheap and they can't afford the I don't
Well,
know,
you know,
the craft to be able to go more than one trip at a time. They're like, well, we got you to Socorro. And
those small
now
craft,
what?
they're not the mothership as we know.
Yeah,
even
there's
from our
probably a big ship,
sci-fi.
a small ship comes
Yeah.
out, maybe a smaller one comes out
There
of
you
that.
go.
But I
Scout
think
ships.
all the evidence, and there's been some good stuff on Roswell lately. I think that there was a lot of sightings before the supposed crash, and I think that that brand new radar they had out there was definitely doing something to the way these things flew. And I think that at Roswell, what probably happened was there were two craft flying close together, or one with an eject pod that hit that radar beam and at the same time got struck by lightning and couldn't handle it and skipped down and then crashed and another crash even further. But in one of the books, and I can't remember, it might have been Don Berlinger's, the famous meteorologist Dr. Lincoln LaPaz had gone back and found a mountaintop where he thought the craft had tried to make repairs to itself, and then in a straight line from that was the crash, and he found pieces there. And that was in I can't remember the name of that book, but I think it was Don Berlinger and Stanton Friedman's book.
We've done shows recently, Tiff, if you recall, where our guests, when we talked Roswell, the topic that the UFO was forced down, that our military was involved. I have a hard time buying into that.
I've heard these stories
in the middle of a ferocious thunderstorm. I don't think so.
Yeah, because the thing is that if they do that, then I've heard the stories. They still follow up with the fact that the military took days before they arrived. I just think if you know you're shooting something down, you're going to get there. You're going to get there before ideally somebody else does. So I don't.
That set the stage for any future recovery, because they really botched that one. And then the first press release was the only true one they ever released about that case.
It comes to mind just now. We were shown some photographs from Ray, which were really interesting. He nicknamed it Gort, and it was this conical shape. It was a round kind of a disc, but the bottom was like an ice cream cone.
Yeah.
And it was translucent. You can see the occupant's legs, arms, and head and helmet. And he calls him Gort because it looked a lot like the robot from the day the Earth stood still. And he showed us that photograph several times, and in fact, it hung over his wife's desk at Goddard for over 20 years. Nobody ever once asked her what it was, and it was over the National Forest in Arizona.
It's not a public. He's never published it, but it definitely clearly shows an occupant.
It shows an occupant
inside of an ice cream cone shaped craft, there's many cases about these ice cream cone, glass dome and a metal bottom, but
they seem to be more classic, don't they? Nowadays, we don't really hear so much about these.
Italy had a lot of those cases. Yeah, there's been definitely a change in the shapes, and what if they just kind of conform to what's in your mind? That. If it's a really advanced civilization, there could be all kinds of questions we're not asking. These things is
it possible that perhaps some more evolved ETs in the past 50 years have shown up?
Yeah, it's just, to me, the evidence is there that there's definitely visitations, and the reason would be to keep tabs on us, since we're still killing ourselves and going to war. So if we're going to travel space, we want it to be a little bit more like Star Trek and not like Star Wars, I guess.
Or the reverse, Independence Day.
Yeah.
Well, that reminds you've seen the movie UFOs and Nukes. Have you seen that one?
I haven't seen the show, but I think I know where you're going with that. Are you going to talk about the disengagement of multiple bombs?
Yeah, where the UFOs were hovering for over 20 minutes over missile silos and
Maelstrom.
Maelstrom Air Force. Yes. Yep. Yeah.
And it's almost like you're letting us know that they're the ones in charge.
I this is sort of strange, and I know it's a little bit off topic, but when I was working for the Department of Defense as a contractor in Greece, I would work a lot of night shifts, and I was on a NATO base called NAMFI. It was a NATO Missile firing installation. And some of the first times that I remember having these episodes of missing time were actually on the base. And I always try to figure out if there was a connection between the missile firing installation that I was on and these episodes of missing time. And I've never been able to really contact anybody to discuss any of their experiences while on the base. And it did take a long time for me to really sort of make the connections for myself. But that's something I'd like to go back and sort of look into. And probably, I guarantee you there's a lot of information out there. It's just like piecemealed, and it's just a matter of finding it. There's so much information when it comes to the UFO world. I just wish that I could get all of it together and have it stacked in a way that I can sit there and search and find some answers. I always feel like there's just an overwhelming amount of information, and you just can't freaking get through it.
It's the great Dave Marler.
Dave Marler.
Been to his house. His collection grows all the time. There is a guy named,
the only one that could pull that off.
A gentleman from England, UK, named Isaac Coy online, and he's been getting permission from all the magazines, all the blogs, all the all stuff that's really obscure, things I used to read, James Mosley's Saucer Smear, and things that have long since disappeared. But he's amalgamating it all for free on Facebook. So his name is Isaac Coy. He's doing a good job of pulling together data. But one thing I wanted to say was that the recent release from the government about UFOs was exactly what I expected it to be, a big piece of BS, basically. They make it sound like, oh gosh, we're just finding out about this, let's look into it. They're lying again about, the scariest thing about that report, and the thing that put their foot in their mouth about the way they released this report was their conclusion was it's our adversaries. That's much worse than saying it's ET. If you say it's the Chinese or the Russian have the capabilities of this Tic Tac, we're screwed.
Yeah.
I would have rather said ET instead of what they said, which just didn't make any sense to me.
Well, hold on. Let me correct me if I'm wrong. They actually didn't say. They didn't mention that it was
China,
local. The
Russia.
local scene. When I say local, I mean Earth.
They said adversary. Yeah.
They did actually use that word.
I believe so. Yeah. Well, okay. They hinted that they definitely were suggesting it was a foreign power and not ET.
Oh, I
didn't really get that from it. But
I actually got the fact that they just didn't know what the fuck it was or it is. Is what I'm thinking, and which is that blows my mind even more with technology or intelligence or whatever. Mm-hmm. But yeah, let's stay with that, guys.
If that were the case, if it were Russia or China or North Korea that had these abilities, and we were just sort of in the dark, how would that make you feel?
Different language by now.
Well,
if that was the case.
The
exactly. We would be bowing down to one of these countries right now.
As an example, we were caught off guard that they were able to launch a supersonic missile that didn't go way up in the air. It just skimmed the atmosphere and had a delivery time that we couldn't stop. And that shocked our military. And that tells you that, well, that still is nothing compared to what that Tic Tac could do. Right. I mean, that thing went from, 30,000 feet to a foot above the water in like about a quarter second, the guy said. Right. So,
yeah, Tiffany, if in 2000, because that was in 2004, if that technology was China's in 2004, my grandkids right now would be
speaking Cantonese, Mandarin,
and will be making iPhones at this very moment.
Yeah,
they would be in hard labor, So I can't buy that it's China. I can't buy that it's anybody here, because I get Ben to your point, Tony to your point, we would be trying to learn a different language, or there would be one ultimate leader, right, one guy
It's not to
running the
say
show.
that's not going to happen. Still, we don't know.
Well, I guess it's
That would be a scary thought, though.
It just shows you that they've been on this since 47 at least. The government. There's it's kind of what Eisenhower and Truman warned us of this secret society that even the secret societies don't know about, these black projects that have come about. So there's a group, I'm sure, that's always been investigating the materials, any biological material they have, any crash material, and has kept it from a lot of other groups, because it seems like other groups, even maybe the CIA or FBI, was like, wait a minute, they actually were looking at this.
Would you say it's similar to the breakaway group described by Dolan? And
yeah, it's kind of it's a group that doesn't answer anybody, and it still exists, and it's never going to answer anybody. I don't believe in disclosure. Why would you disclose? There's absolutely no reason to disclose unless you want to freak everybody out and have a repeat of Orson Welles' 1938 War of the Worlds broadcast.
Or maybe they completed their project and they're done. And now it's done.
COVID was the parting gift.
Right.
Great.
Can we rule out that it's not our technology, and we're still kind of good at keeping secrets?
I think that on some level, a lot of what is being seen in Area 51 for the past, I'd say 10 to 15 years maybe, is our stuff. I think that anything truly ET has gone further underground. I think they've extrapolated all that they need, and now we're just testing what we learned on some level.
Well, the opposite is true. I remember there was a report out of Canada that got leaked, and this one guy, these two top secret people talking to each other, and the guy had mentioned in 1967, the guy had brought up the Roswell material, and the guy said, look, we've been studying it for 15 years, or 20 years, and he said we got maybe 0.5% of it figured out. We don't know what it is or what it does. So even if we have some of these metamaterials, we might not be able to figure out how it works. If Roswell didn't have any type of engine, which there was none reported found, they had maybe...
Didn't they say there was like a mental connection with the craft?
Yeah, who knows what the propulsion was. But, even if we have an intact craft, I'm just saying we might not know how it works. It'd be like giving Leonardo da Vinci a cell phone and saying, figure that out and make another one for me.
That reminds me of, remember Clint Eastwood in Firefox, when he had to think in Russian to make the reverse armaments work?
That wasn't that good.
I didn't see that.
Wasn't that good?
I was like, how cool is that? They're working with
another Dirty Harry movie?
No, it was
Dirty Harry in the plane.
It's always Dirty Harry on. Can he ever not be Dirty
really
Harry?
Bad CGI.
Well, I was a teenager watching. I was all excited. It was an R-rated movie.
I like the way you think.
So let's talk a little bit about the occupants of this craft that he saw. He said he saw these two little beings who were wearing like overalls or Carhartts or
space, like a astronaut outfit. Or
no, I don't think
like a
so.
painter's outfit, like in white, like just top to bottom, like a painter's outfit, maybe like a body shop, white coveralls.
Well, when Ray was out there, he said Lonnie stood next to the creosote or greasewood bush that was right there, and he put his hand up, indicating they were about 4 feet tall. And the fact that we talked to Lonnie's daughter, and Lonnie was definitely a lot different after the event. And I think Tony agrees, but I personally think that Lonnie got a little closer than he ever said, and got a little bit more detail than he ever said. And being a devout Catholic, he was freaked out because he knew he wasn't looking at humans.
Are you saying that you think that maybe he had a little bit closer encounter?
Oh, yeah. Well, not a close encounter. I don't think a physical contact.
Okay.
But he was I think when he was driving up, because he was looking out the window, I think he got a pretty good idea of what he was looking at, because as Ray said, and Lonnie told him, one of them turned and was startled to see Lonnie driving up in his car, and he definitely made a motion like, holy crap, we got to get back. And that's when his vision was blocked. He heard a double hull slam, like an inside door, outside door, like a tank might have. And,
one thing I always thought was interesting was the fact that they actually used a ladder, and there were two holes where the little ladder came land, and they had a few little tiny footprints.
Yeah, there was two round holes from a ladder, and it had and when they had come down, they had smeared it like a ladder would because it's adjusting to the weight. And then the footprints were like, almost like hooves, but they were obviously probably some type of shoe or something. But they were only
like a deer hoof, like a.
No, not really.
That looks like camel
Because you're
toe to
showing me
me.
this, and I'm thinking
that's camel toe to me.
Maybe
it was kind of
maybe
like
I think what he means, it was this long, but the traction lines went this way.
it was like.
See, this is what I missed, Kevin. We had a month.
know.
We had a month lapse of your
you.
comedy.
Our comedy. You served it up, and I knocked it up.
I know it. I missed this. Okay.
Camel toe. Hashtag camel toe, guys. All right.
A lot of people know there were footprints.
Hashtag camel toe.
Now I'm gonna have my mom calling me. What does a camel toe mean? What
Maria,
does that mean?
Maria, who is
Is it because of the pyramids in Egypt?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Did you see the mummy?
Right, Mom. A lot of camels in Egypt, Mom. They wear bikinis too.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Thank you guys. It's been 4 weeks since we did a show. So
Oh my goodness.
wow.
So, I think we accomplished our goal, which was to put everything that's up to date about this case in the book. And so it's about 282 pages, I think. But there was like 300 more pages we could have put in. I just didn't think there was enough,
Well, if you want those extra pages, go to Ray's book.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so that's another thing. You all have mentioned that Ray has given a very good rendition of the story, as opposed to a lot of people who've tried to discuss it. What was so unique about the way that Ray told the story versus what everybody else has said?
It always
He
felt
was there.
Well,
He was
his,
there.
his book, to me, in my opinion, I feel should be basic reading for any UFO investigator. I think it should be required reading. Reading, because of the way he did it. In fact, if it wasn't for Ray, the case wouldn't be what it is today. Because even though Hynek was there, he forgot things to put samples in. He forgot that the rock was scraped.
What the hell is he good for?
Absent-minded
professor. Yeah, that's what people like to hail him as the greatest. And I'm sure he was great, but there's a humanistic side to it, like people really don't see. And that was that he was human like anybody else, and he was a little bit absent-minded. And Ray at the time he's sharp now, but he was super sharp then. And he when he heard about what happened, actually a friend of his told him, he said, "What are you doing here? You should be over in Socorro. There's a UFO that landed, So he got him and his partner at the time, which was his father. This young person's father was helping fund Ray's research. So they went out to the site, and they arrived on Tuesday, the 26th.
Yeah, invited by Hynek. The cops and the FBI, who wasn't supposed to be named as being there, didn't want him down the site. But Hynek said, "No, I know Ray. Bring him down."
Tell him real quick about how Ray had to go back to get that rock, because he felt it was really important because it had that scraped metal on it.
Oh, it had an area that was cut into by metal.
That they're standing at the site, and Lonnie is looking at one of the depressions, and there I reproduced the picture because Ray took the picture of the rock and everything. But he goes, "That rock looks like it was scraped and broken in half by the strut. The struts were wedge shaped like this, and so they left a triangular type deep wedge." And Hynek walks over and goes, "Yeah, it sure does." And Ray looks down, and he's waiting for them to like scoop it up or do something about it. And then he realizes they're not going to do anything. So he reminds Dr. Hynek that they've got to go back to the police station to be interviewed by the FBI. And so they all pile in their cars and go back to the police station. Ray gets in his car, drives right back out, grabs the rock, puts it in a bag, and
at the time it had a really big metal curled up.
Yeah, the thing scraped down. The landing gear scraped
shaving
off and left these silver shavings on it, which Ray they ended up dropping it, the biggest piece. But when they took it in to be analyzed at a lab, the pieces were stolen, and they were told it wasn't anything when they initially said it was definitely not something that was naturally made on Earth. The typical "we gave the stuff to the wrong people" story.
I'll tell you what, the government's really good. They don't have to worry. They will always get all the samples.
It's kind of like with to the bank. To the Stars Academy. gave that material to the government. I'm like, you're never going to see that again.
Yeah. This says, while collecting soil samples, Hynek cut his finger by touching one of the burnt bushes. The cut drew blood and eventually became infected. This is mentioned in a 1965 letter from Hynek when asked about the case. So, infected from a UFO incident. That's sort of cool.
Yeah,
Wonder how many people can claim that.
Was that before or after penicillin
That was after.
invented?
I've seen the letters. He made a joke about it. He goes, I might, have some kind of alien bug or something. But yeah, that's just Hynek had a good sense of humor. He did. Was the case that kind of pushed him over the edge of disbeliever and to form CUFOS, which he did not long after Socorro, which even Hector Quintanilla, who was trying to debunk it, said that Lonnie was an excellent witness and it might have happened exactly.
That's what's really interesting about this case is that someone like Hector Quintanilla and working with the Joint Chiefs and their interest for an alleged non-ET craft, they sure did a lot of work and follow-up during and after.
Yeah, there's a lot of behind the scenes. Even Captain Holder, who was the uprange White Sands commander, who knew everything that flew, he was on the site pretty quickly. And we have when we do our presentation, we have the interview of him where he says, I believe Lonnie, I have no idea what it was. It wasn't one of our craft.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then they also said that Lonnie saw it was unlikely that he saw an interplanetary craft. But
I mean,
can't
if
imagine
Hynek
what else it could be.
Yeah, well, if Hynek would have played it right, the follow-up, I don't know where the swamp gas thing was before or after this.
That was before.
It was before. Then he could have came here and said, "Oh no, it was camel toe because the army had used camels in Arizona."
Well, he went back. He went back through Socorro a couple of times, and there was a letter from I can't remember Menzel, I think, sent him a letter and said, "Can't we just write this off as a hallucination?" And Hynek was like, "No, man, there were indentations in the ground. This greasewood bush that got this flame that played over it and sliced it in half was maybe over it for 1 or 2 seconds. And these greasewood bushes are full of resin.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't do that with a blowtorch. I mean, it's perfect. That's the picture with Ray. That's we have it in our book, but it's the famous picture CIA shows. But that thing is sliced precisely in half. That blue flame just went right over top of it.
And it was smokeless. See, a lot of old books say, "Oh, the smoke from the fire." There was no smoke. It was the dust from the force of the what is likely a subatomic particle, discharge that sliced that bush in half so quickly at such a high heat and still controlled. So once that engine switched off and they went into their silent mode, so to speak, that subatomic particle release wasn't needed anymore. That's why it went away. And
you had radio. The pictures were taken by Ted Jordan were later confiscated. And when he asked for them back, they said they were blurred by radiation. And we have a clip from Ray's movie where he and Dr. Hynek are sitting on a bench about 1975, and Ray tells him about the rock and the what should have happened, and it's a pretty funny dialogue back and forth about what they should have done. And Hynek admits, he says, "You should have given me the material to study," and he goes, "But if you give it to me, it might have disappeared anyway, the way it did when he took it to Goddard." So
it was just kind of interesting he would say that back then. It's like he knew.
But he did admit on film, he goes, "Indeed, the film was fogged by radiation."
In fact, you know what? That leads me to another memory when Ray and Hynek shared the stage on the Merv Griffin show. You guys remember that show?
No, I don't.
Far before your time. It's technically before.
Probably not. Just not in my repertoire at the moment.
The Merv Griffin show was very popular. It was like,
it was the predecessor to Johnny Carson.
That's right.
It was. There you go. That's a good way.
So Ray and Hynek are sitting on the stage, and Ray pulls out. He had a leather bag between him and Hynek, and they had we're sitting next to each other, and the bag was between them, and he pulled out this green rock, and this green rock was allegedly a meteorite or something
from a case in Texas, I think.
And so he passes it around the audience so everybody could see it and hold it and everything. It comes back around, and it gets to Hynek, and then he doesn't know what happened to it. So the show
It
is
just
over.
vanished.
He said he never saw it
He
again.
never saw it again. It went around the audience, and he thought he saw it come back, but it never made it back into his bag because they went to a commercial, and then the show was over or something. He picked up his bag and he was like, it was kind of light, and it was not in there. And then Heineck was already gone.
And we
Great
heard
story.
about that. We finally found a guy that actually had a recording of the show, and it's really a bad recording. But they are sitting there on stage, and the bags between them, but we couldn't see any.
Couldn't see anything. Yeah.
Not that he would do that, but
We just thought it'd be kind of neat if we did see something, but we didn't see anything.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Lonnie Zamora. After all this went down, this wasn't a guy that was seeking his 15 minutes. I mean,
No.
this guy wound up, correct me if I'm wrong, wound up leaving the police force. And
He was made fun of by little kids.
he worked at a gas station, then he worked at the town dump, I believe. But he was just sick of it all. I mean,
Is this because of the immediate reaction to people around the town, or
people asked him, "You seen any flying saucers lately?" and that kind of thing. He was sorry he ever said anything about it. The clips that we borrowed from the TV show Sightings, they did interview Lonnie a lot before he passed away, and towards the end of his life, he was like, he said, I got calls from Japan, I got calls from all over. He goes, I was just sick of it.
They were offering him all kinds of money too. They were just
he never took advantage
of it. He never took advantage of it. Yeah.
But at the end of his life, he didn't say things in coveralls. He would say the creatures.
oh, okay.
Tell me that he
started changing his
they
verbiage a
were
little
creatures
bit.
because he saw them up close. And
Okay, so creatures doesn't necessarily mean humanoid to me. It's a little,
but that
it's a
doesn't mean
strange
human
word.
either.
Yeah.
Right, it's a strange word.
Yeah.
His friend Lopez
I
said,
think with the face, whatever the face was he saw, that's why he's saying creatures.
Okay, so the
I think
face
probably
did not
Lopez
look
said
human.
Little people. He might have said little people too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's sort of strange how your descriptions can change over time with either faulty memory or even sometimes memories coming to the forefront after, I don't know, different hypnosis or different sessions or just constantly thinking about it. It's interesting to hear that he would go from saying beings to creatures.
It reminded me of some of the Roswell video testimony and some of the audio testimony I've heard, where when they get to the creatures, the people that actually saw them, they start freaking out because whatever they saw, it just didn't conform to reality at all. And I think Lonnie had the same reaction. He knew it wasn't human. It could have maybe been a demon because of his Catholic upbringing, but
Did he ever sketch them out? Did he ever try to sketch or draw? No?
We found a gentleman named Patrick Richard who did the drawing of Lonnie that hangs in the Socorro former police station. It's a museum now.
Ray had a few drawings commissioned, and some that he made himself, and we have those on our presentation.
Yeah, but
did you bring them tonight?
They're all in the book.
They're in the book. We got that part we got to pay for, clearly.
You can get it on Kindle. It's $5.99 on Kindle.
It is. That's what we
Amazon, yeah. And
I like this. I like the books. I'm gonna have to order the book.
it's been selling in Japan, the UK. I mean, it's sold all over. I was shipping them out for a while, but it costs like $30 or $40 to ship to some of these countries, and it just
it's easier for them to go to Amazon.
Yeah, I didn't want to charge somebody.
Well, some people wanted a signed copy, so they paid. But
yeah, I mean, it's done well. I looked up. Most books that get written do not sell more than 50 copies, so we sold more than that. But yeah, I printed them up myself, so there are only 500 hard copies in existence.
Oh.
And
so that's what I need to aim for is one of your hard copies.
You don't have to. You can go to Kindle. The Kindle, I think, has a little more material.
She's a reader. She's a book nerd.
I am not getting a Kindle book. You're going to send me a book. I'll pay for the damn thing.
You know what, Tiffany? I ran out of shelf space. I started buying a lot of digital books because I just don't have the space.
Yeah, when you can have 200 books on something that fits in your pocket, that's kind of convenient.
But some books I gotta have hard copy to have on my shelf.
We have some classics.
Gotta have,
Yeah, I'm old school. I want to be able to hold it, smell it, feel it, get a paper cut. You can't do that with a Kindle.
A paper cut.
Mine's paper cut.
I was whining today about a paper cut I had during my work hours. But anyways,
Kevin,
guys,
can you imagine having a real injury, like losing a finger? You almost lost a finger, didn't you?
Just like paper
Kevin?
cut.
Was that your paper cut?
He's got a brace on a paper cut. Look at that.
Yes.
No, it's yeah, something like that. All right.
I thought I was that.
I alluded to, not alluded, I actually said, to me, this incident is top 10 in my UFO lore. Of what's out there, guys, what is maybe the one incident or event that doesn't get the attention that it deserves? I don't want to hear another, no offense to our Roswell friends, I really don't want to hear another Roswell story. Well, maybe if it pops ratings on our show. But
I feel something that's very important that does not get enough attention is underwater UFOs, because we give so much attention, and deservedly so, to what's on land. But say like the Mariana Trench, how do you have light objects traveling at Mach speeds underwater, that have been reported by various either fishermen,
submarines and fishermen,
and you hear about some of these amazing stories of the same creatures we see, these same little creatures, figures, humanoids underwater, and those have been reported by divers and deep sea divers, naval divers, 2,000 feet under.
How are these beings breathing? Do they not have lungs like ours? There's so many questions that I could go from here, because I always think about the beings. I think about how they survive in our atmosphere, in our environment.
Did you not pay attention to that alien autopsy video, Tiffany?
Which one, Kevin?
The one on Fox.
The one with the paper cut.
Look, all I'm saying is that I think about. Forget it, Kevin. I'm done.
No.
I'm going to sign off.
Here's a segue. Share with these former MUFON guys your incident back in Florida that
Hamilton
led you. Was that?
The camel.
I don't know about camel toes in Florida, but I'm sure there's plenty.
Oh, hell yeah. But anyways.
Usually I see at least one or two when I go.
Share your story, your incident that actually led you to MUFON.
Yeah.
And let's get their take.
I know that I'm boring people with my story. And I know that you've heard this over and over, but our guests have not. So I always have a problem with when it was. It was either 2014 or 15, and I would have to go back and look. And somebody who is within MUFON would be able to probably access that information a lot quicker than me just sort of guessing. But it was in October, and it was a full moon, and I was overlooking the Gulf of Mexico. I have a place in Destin, Florida, and I'm right on the beach, and the moon was rising over the water. The water was crystal clear, smooth as glass, which only the Gulf can have. And it was about 10:30 at night, and I remember thinking, God, it's just gorgeous. It's crystal clear. I could see the stars. And all of a sudden there was this massive bright white light, and I couldn't really identify the shape. I was just sort of shocked at how bright it was, and it was coming directly down, like straight down. It wasn't a flare. It wasn't fireworks. There was no angle. It literally just came straight down. And it went under the water. And I remember thinking, what the hell just happened? What the fuck was that? Because I've never seen anything like it before. And it had no wings. It was sort of an oblong egg-shaped craft. I mean, I can't think of anything other than that to describe it. And it went under the water, and I can see a little bit of a light under the water, and there was nothing, no wake, no big splash. There was nothing really to show that anything had happened. And my girlfriend, a friend of mine, had her children down, and we were just sort of meeting for the weekend, and she is staying at our house. And I went into the room, and she was in bed. I woke her up, drug her outside, and I was like going nuts because I couldn't believe that I saw this. And she was in the Air Force, and she had been in what was the Strategic Air Command. I can't remember the new name for what she was in, but it was pretty much the same thing as the Strategic Air Command. And I just remember thinking, she's going to know. She'll know what it is. And of course, she's like, I didn't see it. I don't have a clue. Nothing that I know of can go from up in the air under the water. It just doesn't work like that. And of course, I thought for sure that it would be all over the news in the morning. There was nothing. I thought, my God, there's something going on at the base. So we called the base. Nothing was going on. And we were near, just to give you a little update, there was nobody saying anything at the base. There was no kind of activities, no drills, nothing. So I contacted MUFON, never heard of them before, looked them up on the internet, found out that they were the best place to report UFO sightings. And I never really heard anything about it. I had a phone call from this investigator, but what are you supposed to do? Nobody gave me any information. It just sort of got filed away and is in the back of my head all the time. Every time I look up in the air, I'm thinking, oh my God, am I going to see another one? What is it? Where did it go? I want to know, where the hell did it go? Because I know that the water's not that deep. I could see how far out it was from shore. I can't imagine where it went. And of course, I'm going out swimming in the ocean the next day trying to figure out where the hell that thing went. Nothing. I don't know.
Did you hold your breath?
I am a professional swimmer. Okay, I don't have to hold my breath. It just naturally happens.
Like a swimming Hall of Fame award or something like that, don't you?
Oh, that's a little bit dramatic. I was a state champion, though.
You got a big heavy rock and jumped in with a rope.
I mean, it was shallow water for half a mile, so it's not like
Shallow,
where the
like
hell did it go?
20 feet shallow, or
Shallow, like you could walk out 100 yards.
Really?
wow.
Yeah, it's
Wait a minute. You're saying
Panhandle.
that thing landed or went underwater in that shallow of water?
Yeah.
Don't know where it went. No clue. It looked like
Could it have
looked
morphed?
like it was close.
Maybe
Could it have what?
morphed.
No clue. Is that a possibility?
You could have been the only person that saw it.
There's no way. There's no way I was the only person that saw it. I mean, there's no way.
Well,
A lot of people
don't you guys still have access to the
Tiffany,
MUFON
consider that.
database?
You
No.
reported it, but think of the countless people who don't report these things.
I know there,
That they don't know, or the stigma,
Right.
all that good stuff.
or they don't care. We talk about Kevin all the time. We talk about you not being wired like me or like experiencers. Maybe we have heightened senses, and some people can see them and some people can't. I don't know, but Kevin, I'm hoping that you get to see a UFO soon. Don't know if it's going to happen, but I don't know. No idea.
Guys,
It's just all shocking.
Kevin now, he's like by his window looking at the moon, wishing upon a star.
I've said that to me, and our audience has heard me say this too, so I apologize for bringing this up routinely. There's to me the three greatest questions of our lifetime: is there a God? What happens when we die? And are we alone in the universe? Well, I think the third question, I think the true answer, because I'm a science guy, just throwing that out. I think we potentially get the answer to that last question in my lifetime. I think I'll get that before I take my final breath.
Oh, I think it's all right. When you look at the size of the universe, is infinite as far as we know. Galaxies are speeding away from each other. So who knows what's 15 billion light years in any direction. But with the amount of solar systems that probably exist, the amount of suns with habitable planets in the Goldilocks zone, there's life everywhere. There's, even if it's 1% of what is out there, that's a billion trillion civilizations, because there's probably trillions of galaxies in the universe, and they're being made all the time. Some are dying, some are being made, and we see that. There's just no way there's not life, because the properties of the planets in our own solar system are just a little bit off. Mars probably had running water and was a green, planet until something obviously collided with it and stripped its atmosphere away. But there's, we found evidence of lake beds and flowing water and things like that. So 2 planets and maybe Europa has life under the ice. So if 2 or 3 planets in our own solar system have life, it's everywhere. It's got to be everywhere.
No. I get it. To me, there is life out there. I just want it, as nerdy as it sounds, the alien out on the White House lawn kind of thing. Not to that extreme, but, or maybe, that's how I want it. I want to know.
Do you want it to kick ass and take names, Kevin, on the White House lawn?
I mean, I'm up for it.
What do you guys think of the alleged contract with was it Eisenhower? Allow Skinwalker Ranch to exist, basically.
I thought you were going to talk about American Horror Story.
Apparently, there was this contract they were allowed to kill so many humans or something like this.
That was an American Horror Story.
Was it?
I haven't seen that season of American Horror Story, but it looks
vampires
interesting.
And aliens, kind of a combo.
Yeah, they found a lot of UFO lore and kind of mix it in there. It's interesting what they pull in there and how they twist it a little bit. But it's the real answer in the show is like really bad, really.
It usually is.
That's probably the closer to the truth part.
Yeah, that's one of the possibilities about the truth is you wouldn't really want to know because you would just be so deflated.
But at the same time, too, Ben, isn't pop culture, TV, everything just shoving? I mean, right now the whole alien lore, UFO lore is at its most high. To me, it's at the highest peak.
You might be right. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, why are we really going to be? Are people out there really going to be that freaking surprised or shocked?
Well, you guys have probably experienced this too. Ever since the Tic Tac, craze has been happening, right? With To the Bank Academy, basically everyone that you know has been calling you and texting you. Hey, Kevin. Hey, Tiffany. How about the Tic Tac UFO? Right? Everyone you know has been asking you because in your circle, you're the guy, you're the chick. Same thing with us. The same thing with everyone that we know who is into either MUFON or investigator. Everyone in your circle is like, hey, congratulations, you were right, or this is so cool. And I'm like,
congratulations, you were right.
That's not the point, right? It's like,
I was. You're right. I feel so
crazy
good.
After all, Tiffany.
Right. This could all be a lie.
What if you found out that you're really a character on an alien's laptop?
Good Lord, are we going back to the Truman Show with that one? Alien Truman Show.
Why couldn't we be a simulation?
We could.
Tiffany, how many times have you left the Earth?
Oh, I am totally not telling you the answer to that, because if I say anything beyond I don't know, then I get in trouble. Okay, because it'll be out there forever.
You shared a story the other day where you were a dream or something. You went far and away.
Yeah.
Is that okay to share?
I don't know. Okay, so
guys, for the record, Tiffany is an experiencer. She has shared.
No, for sure, but does she drive the spaceship? That's what I'm getting at.
No, I have not, but I tell you who has.
It's the stereotype. The stereotype of female drivers. We're staying true
right.
to that.
Chicks can't drive UFOs.
Sorry, Tiff.
Maybe we wouldn't crash.
Oh.
We may not be the best drivers, but maybe we don't have.
They'll ask for directions and get to where they're going. Is that what you're saying?
Maybe. Yes. I ask for directions.
But as you get close to your destination, do you have to turn down the radio because you can't do all right, anyways. What's your story? You went on a trip, right?
Yeah. No. So what I'll read what I said because it's sort of specific. I said I had a dream of traveling the universe, visiting other planets like ours. A few aspects I noticed were the gravitational force, color, and what I mean by that is if anybody's ever had a flying dream, you sort of know that there's a pressure. You have to push like a pressure. And I think that the way to sort of really imagine it is if you're in water and you're swimming and you're pushing off the bottom of the pool, you have that pressure against your body, and the force is going against the bottom, right? So it's not that bizarre of a concept, but I think that if you relate it to being out of the water, it's a little bit more difficult to understand, but you get the idea. And I remember thinking of the people, and I say people because I do feel like they were humanoid. Maybe they had different colored skins or different colored hair, or different types of eyes. So I think that in my dream, I was seeing buildings and cultures and languages, and they were as diverse as they are here on Earth, but even more so. So whatever it was just this grand expedition. It was an adventure, and it was very quick. But it shocked me at how much I actually retained of this dream, and the feeling of being in these different places and feeling the different levels of gravitational force and pushing against my body. And it wasn't, I don't know. It was just interesting. And I can't think of any other way to describe it other than a dream. But sometimes it makes me wonder if even,
Dreaming.
I don't think it
I
was a
don't
dream,
know if
Tiffany.
I don't know if I
don't think it
was
was a dream.
dreaming.
I think it
Yeah.
was you went on a journey.
I did go on
Yeah.
a journey. I think I did.
I think
Yeah.
I've had flying dreams, and I've had travel. I've tried.
Do you
to-
remember the feel though? Do you
Yeah,
remember the
I've traveled
feel
out
of it?
body, turned around and looked at myself sleeping, and
Yeah.
witnessed events that actually happened that I could prove happened because I saw them from
Wow.
when I was.
You know, out of body experiences are another phenomenon that seem to go along with all of these experiencers of the alien phenomenon. How do you relate that? Do you think that we have a soul and we can escape our body for short periods of time?
I think so.
It's the abduction experience is so objective. You
Mhm.
know, it's personal, and so having not, I don't think, experienced that. I do believe that there's something. There's got to be a purpose to all of this, and hopefully it's a learning purpose. And so maybe there's a part of you that does go on to learn and goes to another plane. But I've actually separated my perceptions from my body before, so I think there's something to that. I think that people, you know, I've read the book "Many Lies, Many Masters" by I think it was a Virginia college professor that went out to disprove karma and reincarnation, and ended up writing a book where he feels like he did prove that reincarnation exists.
Well, he was interviewing one of his clients, and she had all these like 30 past lives under hypnotic regression, and it was one after the other, and it was amazing. It's a great book.
Then I read Journeys Out of Body, the Robert Monroe series, and both of us have done the hemisync tapes that the remote viewers in the government were sent to Faber, Virginia, to learn remote viewing by putting those two different tones in your ear and then synchronizing
The binaural beats.
The binaural beats, yeah. You know, this is one of the books that sort of, I guess, let me know that I wasn't just a strange person, that I wasn't unique, that there were other people out there, right? That it can experience this.
We don't wear glasses
We can't
on.
see crap.
It's called Out of Body Experiences, a Handbook by Janet Lee Mitchell, PhD.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
got this book when I was 9 years old. And I remember thinking, I do that. And so I found this book and I was like, holy crap, it's not in my imagination. It's not in my head. Other people can do this. So it's sort of, I think that maybe it might have been my first experience with a phenomenon that's not quite understood, and it may be partly starseed experiences. You know, these experiences from different experiencers of UFO phenomenon. I think that there's something that connects us And a lot of people in this area do have that experience.
Well, if they're super evolved and they're, anywhere from 500 to 550,000 years ahead of us, and they want to make some type of contact, they probably do it on a non-physical level. Maybe they can get in touch with your consciousness in a different way. And that would make sense if they're really advanced and they don't want to have the problem of freaking somebody out in person. Instead, take your astral projection and try to, deal with you or communicate with you that way.
Mhm.
But, you can't prove or disprove any of these things. So having experienced, done a little bit of remote viewing and had true out of body experiences, I know that that's possible for me, at least.
Mm-hmm. Is that something that you feel like you can perfect and become a very masterful out-of-body experiencer?
Tapes help with that.
When we met Joe McMonagle,
McGonagall was the number one remote viewer,
and talking to him was really cool.
Yeah,
he told us a lot of really. He's been proven to help find hostages, lost children. And when I asked him, I said, "Hey Joe, did you use your powers for the stock market?" And he just smiled. He goes, "No, that wouldn't be right, would it?" But he smiled about it, and I was like, "What is he saying?"
Yeah, he's had a lot of contracts from businesses, but it's something that he's like, I believe, but he said it. Well, everybody inherently has the ability to do it. It's just a matter, if you don't believe in something, then it's harder to do. But if you believe there's possibilities, I was back before it just became too expensive at the time, but you could go out to Faber College when Robert Monroe was still alive. I think his wife is still alive, but you can go for a week or 2 weeks and go through this rigorous training and have this experience by, you kind of set in a sensory deprivation state listening to this tape. And when you can cut out vision, sound, everything else and just go with a tone, you'll go different places. I mean, if you just go in a sensory deprivation tank with nothing, you'll go a little nuts after about 15 minutes unless you're kind of used to meditating and things like that, because your mind will start. Like when I go to sleep at night, I hear stupid commercials from TV or something that I can't purge from my brain.
Is that when you wake up in night terrors screaming?
Yes. Where's that bladder medicine?
5 easy payments of whatever.
All right, I'll take that car insurance.
I had I think it was my son who mentioned this to me.
Here.
Oh, jeez. Is it My Pillow?
Oh, no, that's
Who's the My Pillow guy?
Lindell.
Lindell. Yeah.
Hey, what's your take on this? My son asked me, it's automatically assumed because there's alien life out there that their technology is better than ours, more advanced than ours. But he brought up the scenario. What if that technology is like their natural thing? What if they show up here and this notion that these people on this planet are using this fuel based and pushing energy? There's where there's fuel and maybe they're on their planet there's nothing like that.
Are you talking about propulsion?
Yeah. Yeah, what we do, okay. But so with
you're not talking about like running and having like blowing the farts out of your pants. You're talking about something a little bit more in depth,
a little more sophisticated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So basically, all the propulsion on Earth, we're just moving air from in front of us to behind us. Right.
Exactly.
And what they're doing is that they're using other forces like electromagnetic type forces where they can manipulate gravity around them.
Right.
Things like this nature. One photograph that Ray showed us in the early days, back around 2015, which really blew my mind. He had a photograph of a saucer-shaped craft that was tilted so that its top, it was flying against its top, and it was emitting a beam out of the top of the craft. And he captured this and showed how this beam that it's emitting is literally opening up the fabric in front of it and falling through non-space time and then zipping behind it so you don't have a sonic boom. And
pushing the air out of the way.
Yeah, it's pushing the air out of the way very quickly. And that's how they go
Plasma,
through water. That's how they go through air. That's how they make 90-degree turns without an inertia canceling. Basically, that this plasma beam, I guess, will act as an inertia canceling device within its properties. And then they open up the fabric of space in front of it, fall through it, zip it back closed, whatever. And that's why it looks like it's skipping across the air. So it's like doing these little pockets, like little waves. Anyway, he used that information to show Jean Petit out of NASA, who was doing some MHD experiments with magnetohydrodynamics at one point, and also another scientist that created the air spike, Leek Marabou, who made the air spike. But yeah, the magnetohydrodynamic stuff, that was all in France. But it was really interesting because they were using a laser literally to propel a projectile, and they would pulse it. They'd pulse this light and they'd spin this disc up to keep the balance of it, and they'd pulse light underneath it and it would go up.
So have we been able to do this? Is what you're saying? We've been able to do that on some experiments?
I think that Paul Benowitz was photographing and filming some of this when he got nailed by Richard Dottie, who's I won't tell you what I think of him, but he was filming these things seeming to pulse off the ground, and it was all the footage and most of the pictures have disappeared. The only pictures I've seen are at Ray's house, and then Christian Lambright's really good book called Extascendian about Ray and Paul Benowitz. But I think he filmed something like that. And I've seen things on TV, on science shows, where they're trying to use a laser to propel something, or the light sail, or pulsed explosions. If you're in space, you can have an explosion every 5 seconds, and you can keep increasing speed. Then the problem is, how do you slow it down?
How do you stop? Right.
Yeah. What it is right now is that we're kind of piecemealing the properties of all these different technologies, whereas you're looking at you're trying to like reverse engineer a lot of these craft that have all these properties kind of baked into the fabric or the material of the craft, which is what's been described with the Roswell thing being kind of an organic craft that works with the occupants.
Right.
Back to the original, I guess, question was, if they get there from here and it's not mental, it's not a telepathic projection, then they're obviously more advanced than us. They have properties, but we know from our radioscopes, our telescopes, and Hubble and everything that we see the material of life. We see the material out there, hydrogen, carbon. We know what goes on when a star collapses. We're all made of stardust, So the metals and everything that exists around the universe are probably the same. They're just, if they're off-world, they'll have a different isotope, and you can tell they're not from this world.
Or bound,
but they're still the same materials.
Yeah.
It's just that an advanced civilization has figured out how to put them together in such a way that you might not require an engine to make this thing fold space. It might just be put some electricity in it.
That's a good segue to talk about the metal from the craft.
Remember? Yeah, let's talk about that.
Well, the metal from Socorro,
I know you said that they had the rock that had the metal shavings. Did they actually?
Right,
did anyone take the metal shavings?
Yeah, so it went to Goddard, and like we said, when Ray was handing over the rock to was it Richard Hall, as he's handing him the rock out of the Ziploc bag or the plastic wrapping that it was in. I don't know if Ziploc was invented yet. He pulls the rock out, and as he's handing it to him, he says, "You'll notice, this big. Oh, where's the metal?" And they started looking through the grass for hours, and they didn't. It just.
I have a picture of it. It's all rolled up like the pier did slide down the rock.
I'm glad he took a photograph of it. We have a presentation.
You need a metal detector like I have upstairs.
Yeah. So when it went to
can't believe that they wouldn't bring a metal detector to a crash site.
Like 60 years ago. No, they didn't think of a lot of things then.
What was interesting is that Goddard reported back to Ray that it was a zinc iron alloy, and at the time it wasn't found on the periodic table, anywhere in the
way
US.
It was combined.
Yeah, the way, but it was, how it was bound together was really, really strange. And what they reported to Ray was that this metal has the properties to resist corrosion and would be a perfect material to use on anything extraterrestrial, or
especially landing gear.
For sure. So that was interesting.
But then they came back and said it was silica, which is sand.
Sand. Huh. Interesting. So it was sand metal.
Right.
So Hynek was a little miffed about that, and he.
Yeah.
but he's the one that saw the rock and didn't grab it. But the same thing would have happened. It would have disappeared.
It would have disappeared. We're not allowed to have anything.
It's just like even now, why do we give samples to the government for testing? Why are these companies?
Why do you send your DNA in to get analyzed?
Oh yeah, I wouldn't do that either because you don't own that. If you read the
No, it's gone.
You are assigning your DNA away to that company. They can license.
Was it 23andMe? What is that?
There's
is that what you're
a
talking
lot
about?
of them. Ancestry.com, 23andMe. There's
in the future.
Yeah, and you know what's funny about that you say that is that they were talking every time I got on Facebook for like 2 months, there were these advertisements saying send your DNA to the moon. And it's like, what the hell would I do that for? Why would somebody turn their DNA over to this company to send to the moon? What are they doing with this DNA?
I wonder if it even matters at this point because we've all been in the hospital. We've all had blood samples taken. Our blood DNA is
That's
somewhere.
like send me $500 and I'll name a planet after you.
You can own a star.
Well, they've done that. I've seen that.
And in fact,
No, I remember that was sort of a popular thing to be done back in the 90s.
Right.
You can own a piece of a star.
What a great scam.
By the same people that bought the pet rock.
Yes.
We're gonna run out of stars.
What's your take, guys? I'm throwing this out to you, Tiffany.
Oh, look at this. Hold on. Before you go any further. Eufy says DNA.
Questions.
Yeah. How else are they going to stock the Ark? I like that. You're right.
I buy
We're going to do this all over again.
I buy into this notion of the Ark versus that 2,000 euro book, by the way.
Yeah, let's see. Normally they don't keep blood samples from routine tests. I'm sorry, what did you say, Tony?
Oh, the Ark's in the movie 2012 with John Cusack. Oh, remember that?
Yes.
That was cool, right?
Yeah.
Break this down, Tiffany.
Yuffie wants to know, does anyone find it curious that humans of this age are focused on the ET experience via a technological lens? In ages past, it was different. What will it be in future times? It's a really good comment.
Contact.
Ben, what do you think?
Well, hopefully contact of some sort. It's just, I keep going back to that, when you pass an anthill, you really don't pay attention to it. There's a lot of civilizations that could be.
I do. I watch them.
But there's an old meme, can't say it right, on Facebook that says when aliens pass by Earth, they lock the doors.
Amen.
Yeah,
it's a good idea.
It doesn't make any sense if you're really advanced, except to maybe monitor or maybe learn how certain behaviors come about. Make it a lab experiment. But
I think that there's multiple agendas going on. One agenda could be slowly educating us. Another one could be taking some of us for their whatever experimental reasons, especially the cows, man. They really like those.
Could be different civilizations.
Could be different civilizations with different. Yeah, I think that maybe Earth is we're all just being raped on some level. I don't know. We're being used.
Could be. Maybe the secret is, something really, really bad. And we did have, I won't mention his name because I don't want to put it out too, but we did have a very high-ranking person in the Air Force that told us that when he looked into, he had to do audits of a lot of the major intelligence companies. So he said when he finally did these audits, he was telling us this at a conference, but he said, I found out that at the very top, we're not in charge. And I said, what do you mean by that? And he just nodded his head up. I said, really? He goes, that's what the data showed. So that was a little freaky because I like this. I trust this guy. He's a smart man.
You've seen The Matrix, right?
Yeah.
We're the batteries.
Oh God, there's a few movies like that. There was I'm not going to remember the name of it because my brain doesn't work today. But there's a few movies like that where they eat our brains or we're just being used as batteries. Yeah, sort of a terrifying option.
But you can't throw it out because this is a digital universe that's been proven. The Drake equation keeps getting modified, expanding on the probability of other human-like and Goldilocks zone planets. There seems to be an infinite number. The further we can see out, the better we tune Hubble. Man, the numbers are just astounding. And
the hope is that if if you're a civilization that's been able to travel space, you have to overcome a lot of hurdles. First of all, you got to stop killing each other. Secondly, you got to solve a lot of crises that maybe take your attention, like saving the planet. But if you get to the point where you can travel space, you may be an empathetic, compassionate species. And so you just try to do good things. On the other hand, you could be like the Klingons, and just want to take. So if there's multiple civilizations out there, they could have all kinds of agendas. And and there could be one that's stopping another from being really bad. Because you hear all these stories about 46 different races and all these different tales, but those are all just stories.
46, 57, 100. There's so many numbers.
We don't know for sure.
And also, I feel that because of the vastness of space and the Einstein-Rosen bridge, they don't need to travel the distance. They just need the technology to bend time and space. Or if they're a higher level civilization, type 3, 4, 5, and 6, they're just opening dimensional. They have the energy to open a dimensional gate. There's all kinds of things all happening at once. And in this day and age,
they may be able to just use one specific data point and be able to be there instantaneously.
I think that there's more than one answer. In fact, there could be dozens of answers. The sun could be some sort of gateway. There could be gateways on the earth. We've seen them in lore, Puma Punku area and in Turkey, and we hear all these stories of how the gods would come through these doorways and things like this. So I think there's no one answer. There's tons of them, and I think it depends on the race we're talking about. We have multiple races on this planet. I think a lot of people are right here if we just look within ourselves. Well, expand what we have here, expand it out there.
But the problem is the one organization that has the answers is not going to give us the answers.
Of course.
Well, who's at it? Because could be a good segue.
Because if they have
or rather the
parts of
group.
ET or whatever.
I mean, who are we talking about? Who are you talking about?
Type of military industrial complex that's a black project. Because the first thing they're going to do with any material or DNA is see how they can weaponize it. That's priority one. Let's make ourselves stronger than the Russians and the Chinese. Everything else falls behind that. And when you're doing that, it's always going to be classified at the top level. You don't want the president of the United States to know about it. You certainly don't want,
Right. He's a temporary employee.
Right.
All of them are. Yeah, even Congress, is trying to find out. A lot of them are asking questions now, like Senator Byrd did, but they can get a lot of answers, and they can't force it because they can just say, that file doesn't exist, or you need to talk to NASA. NASA
it's very compartmentalized, and that's why it's compartmentalized. There's always deniability.
That's why with Roswell,
all you have to do is say national security. You're not in the know. You don't have a reason.
Everybody that was at Roswell when that happened got shot off to Guam and Hawaii, and so nobody could remember who they were with when they were there.
We have a situation that we came across. Dave Spinks, one of our past guests who does a lot of investigations into hauntings. He was in the military, and he was there for Phoenix Lights. Remember that, Kevin? And he said that he has not been able to contact anybody that he was stationed with at that time. They all just got shipped off to different areas.
Scattered,
yeah, sort of scattered to the winds.
I heard that. That.
There's one case that I haven't heard much about since it came out, and that was on the Linda Moulton Howe's website about the underground pyramid in Alaska. I was always interested to hear more about that, and it just kind of
There's a lot of, the thing about proof is what is proof? Because I remember there's a couple of videos from the ISS that showed. There's one that was on a couple of shows that did a really good job of analyzing.
The STS?
The proof is out there. There was some kind of like yellow canoe-like thing that docked with the space station, and they filmed it.
I remember that one, yeah.
And this was not ours.
It was like, no, it docked with our space station, but it was like a yellow canoe, and
it didn't look like a spacecraft.
Yeah,
it looked like.
And there's a couple of others. There's one where a thing comes up and just stops, and it's a round ball. There's another video of an object out in deep space that does this, and that's not a meteor. That's intelligent control. So we're filming objects in space that are obviously not ours, but even that, the fact that these films are available and you can find them, what do you do about it? You just, it doesn't prove anything, and that's what's so hard about this subject.
I'm looking at an article in or on October 19th, NASA Administrator Bill Nelson spoke.
Went off the
there was-
chart.
yeah, where basically he said, he suggested UFOs have otherworldly origins.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a big statement from a NASA guy.
Yeah, that surprised me because he just flat out, said it like it was, like we've known.
And very
Yeah.
little response from the public. It's almost like people are just desensitized at this point.
If you're that open at NASA, why don't you pull those textbook files that you
Right.
got and let us know what really crashed in Pennsylvania?
I think there's so many young people today ready to accept a lot of this information. Like even my son, it's like I could tell him the most fantastic story. He'd be like, "Yeah, cool."
He's seen it in a movie before.
That's true, Tony. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. My daughters are very indoctrinated into
Yeah.
this world, but it's not even from me. It's not
Just
from
media and from
yeah.
television, movies. They've done their job. The movies have done their job.
All I had was the Invaders and Star Trek.
It was enough.
Let's be honest, guys. Tiffany, confirm or deny? As a female, would you be more impressed with Tony sharing a ET story or on stage playing a guitar?
Oh
The guitar.
gosh. I really enjoy music, so I would have to say guitar.
Exactly. Tony, share with us what's going on in your music world.
Yeah, so like I started playing about. Oh, Ben's got to go to the bathroom. I started.
You didn't have to announce that.
Well, where else would you be going? It's the show's not over. I'm pretty sure everybody knows.
Going to
I
grab a
gotta go
beverage.
too. Keep talking.
Good God. Okay.
We both use the bathroom a lot, so.
Bladder's the size of peas.
No, mine is not. Mine's the size of a basketball.
Oh, great. Good to know.
It takes me a minute. No, but I started playing back when I was 14, and I haven't changed a bit since I was 14. I was riding motorcycles, racing BMX, playing guitar, and it just became that's what I was going to do for a living. I thought, in some level, right? Nothing ever works out that way. Everything becomes a hobby, right? So time went on. Ended up getting married, having kids. Put my life on hold for a long time, and then the last 5 years, I had to relearn how to play everything. I play guitar, bass, 6-string, 7-string, 6-string basses, 6 and 7-string guitars.
Is it like languages? If you don't use it, you lose it?
Well, to an extent, for sure, because you have a muscle
Mhm.
memory in your fingers, and
Mhm.
there's this synchronicity between the brain of your hand and the brain of your mind, And on top of that, it's more than that, because it's almost like a meditative thing that you
Right.
get into. I was playing something like 6 hours a night for about 3 years just to get caught back up, And then I started recording and learning everything I could about recording. And before you know it, you're thinking, oh my God, I've devoted how many hours to this? And you start to realize that the pros probably do even more than that. All your heroes, they spend all their time doing it.
Well, it's like Kevin and I mean, we spend hours sitting here at these desks and cameras, and we just don't get paid. God,
Oh, I
Kevin.
would get paid. You're not supposed to if you love it.
I agree.
I've always said if
agree.
you get into ufology to be rich and famous, you're going to be poor and unknown.
We had another.
Oh,
I
is that
was
what
getting
you're
ready to go there. Yeah.
You go. You guys would know.
If MUFON were a part of a top secret dark operation, would anyone ever know?
You know what?
No, there's no need to be. They've shared their files with Bigelow, and
Right. I don't think that would be the case.
Yeah, and the thing is that all the like Kufos and NICAP were all penetrated by CIA, and they drained them of money and then took them down. So
MUFON doesn't need to do that; they just give it away.
Well, yeah, you could have plenty of people, probably have inside of MUFON that are there just to collect data and get access to the database.
They have a terrific database, but our argument has always been, what are you going to do with it? We have not really gone any further in 50 years in ufology. How are we any better today than we were then? How much data we collected? How many UFOs have we seen? How many videos, pictures, and photographs? About the only thing maybe you can argue is that we're seeing it in mainstream TV with the Tic Tac thing, and even that could be a whole lie for all we know, because the source is the government.
Well,
Yeah.
there's a few Linda Moulton, how I know, recently was on a show with.
And she's been tricked before. She was tricked by Doty.
But they kept some of the pieces, because I remember when I used to communicate with her. In 2004, I think she got that envelope from the gentleman that said, "My grandfather was at Roswell. This came from the underside of the craft." But when they analyzed those pieces recently, it had all kinds of rare metals, things I've never even heard of, that were in it, and it made no sense to be in this material. And so that was very interesting, because it shows you something really weird is still out there, and or even like,
it's like we're this close to getting that information, and every time we get our hands on it, it disappears. Every single time.
Yeah, I'm sure if you're digging Roswell, you're on a satellite image somewhere.
Yeah, stay with Roswell.
Go ahead, Kevin.
No, finish it, because I'm going to go off in another direction. Go ahead.
The idea behind if we knew what the metals were that were at crash sites, would that help us solidify the idea that they're out of this world, out of this off planet?
The two ways to tell are: is it manufactured in a way that we're not capable of, and is it the isotope ratio show you that even though it's iron, it's not iron from Earth? The isotope will tell you that it's off world. But the material from Roswell that I've seen, that kind of like what we developed called nanitol, or memory metal, but this thing had layers of bismuth and magnesium that were like the width of a human hair, and just all these weird layers. That in 47 there was no, I don't think we had the ability to make something like that, and its purpose was unknown. But when she had taken it to a lab and put electricity through it, it shot across the room. And they didn't tell the scientist what it was, but he said, "Well, I don't know what this material is, but it'd be great if it was part of a lifting body, because when I put 1,000,000 volts in it, it took off." So we have found materials that, if they are from 47, we didn't make it because we didn't have the capability to make these fine layers. And who would have thought of bismuth? The material actually, I think, blocked cosmic radiation, which is not that hard.
Are you saying it was bismuth?
Yeah, bismuth, magnesium, and zinc, but in these micron thin layers, like half a human hair width. The reasoning for that, they were starting to find out, well, it takes a charge of electricity and kind of loses gravity, and it blocks cosmic radiation. But that's, I remember, I won't say the name of the show. There was this kind of dumb show where a UFO guy and an astronaut were on the show, and he was saying, "Look, we didn't go to the moon because the craft couldn't block the cosmic rays." And the guy, in an experiment, the guy had a piece of paper and some water and blocked like 50% of cosmic rays. But when he said, "Look, the space capsule that went to the moon was 6 inches of aluminum, and you take 6 inches of aluminum and that'll block 100% of cosmic radiation." So
did you notice he said 6? He said this was 6, by the way.
Good Lord.
Boys will be boys, Tiffany.
If you could argue also that Corso's book claimed that crash debris went to MIT and certain colleges to develop the transistor and fiber optics and all these wonderful night vision and all this stuff, if it's true. But practically speaking and tangibly speaking, I can say that, or the Ray's thing of the beam ahead had a practical application towards the air spike, which is an invention that actually came to fruition because of a ufological event, right? But that's the only one that I could cite based on.
Yeah, and the scientist would never admit it, but Ray said that he watched this film about 30 times that he had filmed, where this thing was pulsing a plasma beam or something in the direction it would travel. And so the scientist went back to his lab and found out that if he put energy, and you'll see these long spikes on the space shuttle and everything now, that spike will create an energy. If you pulse energy through it, it'll push the air out of the way, so you can go through a vacuum. Thus, you can travel much faster. And if you travel through a vacuum, you're not going to break the sound barrier.
Like a Concorde.
So so it did have a practical application. And he told Ray before he left, he said, "You've just made a tremendous contribution to aeronautical engineering, but I'll never admit to that."
So on some level, he's probably the only ufologist that we can think of that used ufology to bring a great invention to reality.
Unless we did that with those other pieces.
You know, I'll just add, this is another example. I'm looking at a headline here. Another example why our technology, we still have a long ways to go. Leaky SpaceX toilet problem will force SpaceX toilet problem will force astronauts to use backup undergarments.
Did you say space sex or SpaceX?
Both.
I don't think there's a lot of sex in space if you're going to be crapping in your pants.
That's a soundbite. That's a keeper. What's you that's
got to cross Bezos's mind, right?
Read that one.
Just like, wait a second. Okay, I'm done.
I got enough money.
So sexy.
I don't need to try with anybody.
Tiffany hang with the boys. What's
I always hang with the boys. Okay, yeah. Tracy Austin says, "Hey Tracy, how did we get past the Van Allen belt in 1969? Full of radiation. My ex-husband's father was a NASA engineer and says we did go to the moon."
Well, there's a lot of things wrong with that. If you ever you can Google how we got past the Van Allen radiation belt. The craft blocked a lot of this radiation. You can do demonstrations. You can also ping the lunar lander with a laser. You can see it with telescopes. It's there. We did land on the moon. We did bring back rocks from the moon. But even what are the guys that Mythbusters did a whole show about that. Passing through the radiation belt proved it could be done with the craft they had. Went out with the NASA scientists and hit the craft with a laser because it has a reflector and it reflected back. Then they took images and the lander's there, the tracks are all over there. The thing didn't drive itself. There's somewhat proof that we went to the moon.
Yeah, they also proved that the reason why you don't see stars from the moon and light refraction and all this.
The cameras were, there's a lot of, China's been to the moon.
That's always been confusing to me.
Whoa, hold on. You can't see the stars from the moon? What?
No, there's
pictures that show
the shutter, the way the shutter works, and the way that the light hits the lens.
You have to understand, when you're on the moon, there's no real light. You're either bathed in sunlight,
there's no.
So there's a huge washout of the atmosphere, but there are many pictures that you can see backgrounds, especially the classic one with the Earth rising above the moon.
But when the Earth's predominantly in the picture, the focus is on that, not behind the Earth where the light's not reaching to see the stars and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing about not going to the moon, there were many astronomers that tracked that craft and were looking at it going to the moon and getting there and coming back. There's lots of different telemetry.
There was also ham radio operators that were monitoring the whole thing and recorded everything.
So if you're on the moon and you're with your significant other and you lay a blanket on the ground of the moon,
the aliens don't like that.
They don't like it. If they did,
is that not allowed?
What would you be looking up? What would you be looking up at? Planets or the Earth?
You would be blinded, first of all, unless you had some kind of shield on. They have that gold filtered shield because your eyes would be burnt out, and I'm sure 10 seconds.
I didn't realize we had Neil deGrasse Tyson ×2 here tonight.
I don't agree with a lot of stuff he says about UFOs.
I don't either.
Yeah, he's like basically public enemy number one for the UFO scene. All right, you guys play along with me. This is Tiffany. I kind of messaged you and thought I was not going to do this segment, but I'm going to kind of do it. It's going to be different, a little different. I'm going to throw off some names, and I kind of hinted around. I'm about to soundbite. I'm going to throw off some names and either give me a one-word response or a response in a sentence. Ready? Play along, guys. All right. Stay with Neil deGrasse Tyson. Ben?
Well, he's a smart scientist. He's just as Stanton Friedman used to say, "Don't bother me with the facts. My mind's made up." That's where he's at. His mind is already made up.
What about you, TA?
Oh, I think that I don't like the way he portrays
Angiola.
What did he call me?
Angiola.
Angelino or something?
Angelino.
I think it's his favorite ravioli.
Angelina.
It is Chef Boyardee's.
Yeah, I just don't like the way he portrays the UFO community. He kind of smirks at it, you know, and always pokes fun at it. And he's like, little green man.
Why do they always land in the field with Billy Bob?
It's just like, man, why even talk about
the
it?
camera's always blurry, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. All right.
You can't get there from here, that whole thing.
Ben, Bob Lazar.
I don't buy it. I don't
either.
I don't buy it. I think a lot of people have latched onto him to make money and make all these films and do all these things. And the most telling thing is when Stanton Friedman debated these guys and destroyed his background. I mean, he probably did work. There's that W-2 document that he worked at S2 or wherever. I think everything else is bunk. The whole Element 115 thing from a scientific standpoint is impossible.
For you young kids out there, that means BS.
Yeah, I don't buy it.
Good story.
Impromptu question. What are your takes on Tiff's red lips tonight?
Oh, good Lord.
So they
on Tiff's red lips. That's not a camel toe.
Good Lord. No, it's not a camel toe question. Jeez.
all right.
Always hanging with the boys. Got
Jeremy
the boys
Corbell,
talking about camel toes.
Yeah. Jeremy Corbell.
Oh God.
And that's a negative for me. I met him a couple times. I think he gets he's
trying.
He's trying, but he's latching on to the fantastic a bit too much without the necessary evidence. But I think
so you really do. In your belief is that he's sincere. It's just right. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Misled.
Yeah, I think he got bamboozled by Lazar and bought into it. But there's also a money making opportunity there. There's a fine line between being an investigator and doing things for cash, and that kind of blurs things. Whenever I see money involved and selling things, it raises a red flag. Except for a guy like James Fox who makes excellent movies, and I know personally is a good guy. He's in it for the truth.
And we know how much money he's lost.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's got to make a living, but it gets to a point where you don't put fabrications out there to make $1 off of it. Try to get to the truth and not something you really can't prove, and a lot of people might be able to prove is not true.
And also, when you're out and about, don't be such an arrogant. Never mind.
Noted. Lou Elizondo.
Lou is at first I fell into a trap with this thing about Lou, because I remember when the government came out and said he never worked there, he didn't have anything to do with blah blah. I'm like, that's the same thing they said about the guy that filmed the missile that got hit with the beams at the Air Force Base, where they said he was never in the Air Force, and then he proved he was. So as Lou has talked more and come out, I really believe that he knows a lot more than he can say. He's been getting closer to that bush he's been beating around. But I think he's trying to get the truth out there. And my only problem with these guys that were all part of ATIP is they still connected to DIA or intelligence agencies. And so they still have NDAs. And so they still might be able to have to say things that aren't true and not be able to say things that are true. So my biggest concern is I don't want intelligence officers telling me what's going on with UFOs necessarily.
Right.
But I believe he's a good guy and trying to do the right thing.
Okay. That's fair. MUFON.
Well, we rejoined recently when we were in Vegas.
Really?
Well, we signed up for the
as
journal.
members, yeah, because
okay, signing up for the journal is different than signing up and becoming diehard members again.
We're not investigating. We investigate on our own, but
we do the UFO guys investigations. We don't investigate for MUFON.
Dave McDonald, who took over, is a good guy. I think a lot of the issues they had are behind them.
Well, they're still working out.
They're still working out some things, but I think it's going in the right direction. And there's a lot of people associated with MUFON. The Phoenix MUFON group are great people. Florida. I know a lot of people that are investigators in
well, that's 2 states. What about the other 48?
Oh no, there's good people. There's good people everywhere. A lot of people do this field investigation. You spend a lot of money and time doing it, and they don't get thanks for that. So there's a lot of good. The nuts and bolts of the organization are good. maybe get some new fresh faces at the top. But yeah, I don't have any issues with MUFON. I at least they're still holding the conferences and getting pretty good speakers. There's a pretty good lineup this year, especially since we were there. Just kidding.
Yeah, not only were they there, Tiffany, if I heard Ben right, this tells you this is diva status. When you take a moment and count the number of rows and then the number of people in each row. Oh, we had 500 people listening to us. Yeah.
I was watching a presentation. I was like, no, okay.
I just saw the first 3 rows.
But Kevin Day was supposed to do the 7:30 Saturday night, and he couldn't come. I think there was some issue with a show he had filmed where he couldn't talk about what he was supposed to talk about. So they asked us to fill in, and we put together a pretty good presentation for an hour and 15 minutes, and a lot of people came up. Really said
we said no at first because we didn't have our computer with us. We didn't have our presentation. Then I remembered, hey, wait, I backed up a version of it to the cloud. He had his work laptop, so we downloaded what we had, and we modified it for a few hours.
I think it was our best one yet. Because when we stopped,
well, that's pretty impressive to just on the fly be able to pull a presentation out your ass. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Badasses.
Yeah.
We stopped and said, are there any questions you want us to continue? They're like, no, go on, keep going. Because we were using a lot of clips of Lonnie talking that a lot of people have probably never seen, recreations of the event, clips of Lonnie throughout the years and how he was talking about it. Hynek's interview with Ray.
We have a short little clip, and I'm not sure if we can show it. Do you know if we're allowed to show the little video clip?
Well, it's a 3.5 minute clip. I'm looking to see if there's any copyrights on it, which I don't see. But it's 3.5 minutes, so I don't know where you would want to start it. And
is it alien porn?
Not that I'm aware of. I haven't been able to get to the end.
Stay tuned. Tiffany and I do weird stuff after the show. Stay tuned.
Yeah. Did you take your Ambien yet?
I don't do that stuff. I've had Ambien once in my life, and my face swelled up really bad.
She's talking to me. But yeah, this is I mean, I can put it up, and Tiffany, I don't know. It's 3.5 minutes long, but it's a YouTube video by the group is I'm gonna butcher it. SOCORRO Socorro, I guess.
Dude,
is that a band?
It's called the Socorro Incident.
What?
I think
I'm reading the wrong thing. It's
Gosh, I've never heard of this before. What have we been talking about for 2 hours?
It's for the record. It's been a mimosa night.
Well, let's put it on, and then they can give us their
Ben's bladder. How's your bladder doing, Ben?
I'm good. I think I might have seen what you're going to show, but because I did a lot of homework on the internet with regards to Socorro.
Tony, I'm going to give you this is free advice. Next time you do a presentation, take your guitar up or with you, hit one of those chords in between
I'm telling you.
I mean,
I'm telling Ben, when we left that stage, I was pretending that I just said, "Thank you, good night."
Vegas will be back. We'll see you next year.
All right. It was tempting.
All right, hold on.
Okay.
Let's try this.
Ahead, you'll hear an interview with a New Mexico policeman who a few days ago saw an object take off and leave in its wake burning grass and impressions on the earth. It's quite a story. And one that we'll hear more of later.
Elizabeth.
No, I think Rydell took some. Yeah, that was
We got that one. Got that one.
I was chasing a reckless driver going up south Park Street. Up to the time I came to this little road, I heard this big roar blast. We got a dynamite check to the west there. I thought I'd investigate maybe. I thought maybe it blowed up. So I started up there real fast. Halfway to it, I stuck my head out the window, out of the car, and I seen this white egg object. I didn't know what it was at that time. I thought it was a vehicle that turned over. I started up real fast so I could maybe help the people in the car. I went up to it close, about 200 feet. I was 200 feet from it. I got off the car and started toward it when I heard this big noise again, same noise, and the flame coming from under it.
Tic-tac.
I got scared and started running back. I ran about 50 feet from it. I pulled myself to the ground to hide. Afterwards, I didn't hear the noise no more. I just lifted up my head to see what was happening. It was real quiet then, and I saw this white object just take off towards the west there, smooth out.
The Air Force sent its chief investigator on UFOs, Dr. J. Allen Hynek, to find an answer.
The thing that's puzzling to me is, I'm sure it must be to the folks around here. I certainly believe that Lonnie Zamora had a most interesting and significant experience, and I'm particularly interested in the tracks that were left and the analysis of the samples of material from those tracks. And until you know more about it, all I can say rather disappointingly to you perhaps is simply that I'm as puzzled as you are.
Major Hector Quintanilla is now the chief of Project UFO.
One of the classic cases on file in the Air Force is the Sapporo, New Mexico case, which occurred in April of 1964. It is one of the best documented records. However, there is no indication that this vehicle, which the policeman Lonnie Zamora saw, was interplanetary or that it was beyond the state of the art of our present day scientific knowledge.
Let's see when this was created.
Yeah, that
That's
one.
a lot. Yeah, that's from the Mercer files.
Yeah. Saucero must be Mexico.
Yeah.
Saucero.
So the idea that it still claims to have been unidentified. Do you think that we're ever going to get a different response?
Do you know when that was made? That collage there?
Oh, I don't know. I don't even know. Let's see.
Is it still up on Saucero.com or did you download it a while ago?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, because the footage
still
in there is part of the Lost Socorro footage that we found. So I bet they grabbed, because we posted that on YouTube.
They got some of our presentation.
So it looks like they got some of the documents.
Interesting.
So it looks like they.
I'm looking. I do not see your name in the credit section.
Interesting. We'll forward that to you.
But this was put out there for the record. The video is April 24th of this year.
Oh, there you go.
Damn. There it is. The anniversary.
They got it from our, You know, what's funny is we did a presentation in, I can't remember where it was. Oh, maybe in Pennsylvania. And apparently some guys in the back filmed it. And it showed up on YouTube for a price. And they had gotten 200,000 views.
Good Lord.
Like $5 a piece or something. I'm like, wow, we missed out on that one.
Yeah, for sure.
We don't do it for the money.
Wow. They did.
They obviously ripped us off, but it is what it is. I don't really care that much. As long as people are seeing it, I'm happy with it.
Because to you, this is, I mean, I said this was a top 10. Is it to you? You guys ate one of the top 10s, or is it even better?
One of the most evidential close encounters of the third kind in the world, but especially in the United States. And with, the whole chapter devoted to Lonnie Zamora and who he was gives you a pretty good idea, because tried to break down all the possible explanations, and it only came down to time travel, a weather phenomena, a hallucination, a hoax, or some type of man-made vehicle, which would have had to have been a vertical takeoff vehicle. Because the lunar lander didn't even fly for another 6 months. It was being dropped from these struts to test the landing structure. Test the landings. It was being dropped by cables, but didn't have an internal engine, didn't fly. So it definitely wasn't anything we made. But when we looked at all the different possible explanations, there was really no other explanation except for it was just not made here, not on this planet. So it's kind of like Roswell. The more people have dug, the more people corroborate the real truth of the story. You find more witnesses, you find more people, because in town it was well known that people saw it, but they said, look what they've done to Lonnie. I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm not going to tell El Defensor Chieftain, which is the paper that broke the story.
Yeah, apparently these things like to land down by the canal and the water. It was reported several times, and police officers saw it several times.
Yeah, and there's a lot of uranium and rich minerals and things in that area. So who knows? But this thing definitely.
You said it was volcanic. Is that correct?
Yeah, the whole area is an ancient. I think it's an ancient sea.
Okay.
A lot of the material is volcanic, and there's definitely a lot of uranium. They mine a lot of uranium out there. There's the New Mexico School of Mining is out there.
Another interesting thing is when we were out at Ground Zero, something whizzed right by Ben.
Oh yeah, I saw a mini Tic Tac. It was really, really weird. Tony didn't see it.
When you say mini Tic Tac, how big is a mini Tic Tac? Like the size of an orb shooting past you?
Idea. I played tennis, and I'm used to seeing a tennis ball come at me at like 120 miles an hour. But this thing, Tony was facing another direction. I saw something out of the corner of my eye, and then I saw this thing about this big, looked like a elongated Tic Tac, I had to say. And this was several years ago before any of this came out. But it was ground terrain for sure, because it came down, and if there was an obstruction in front of it, it did this, came down, whizzed by, went up, and then just.
So it didn't go straight.
Oh no, it was ground terrain, definitely.
Wow.
It came down into the gully because we were at the landing site, and then went back up. But it was only about this big. It was doing at least 100 miles an hour. I just saw it, and then I locked onto it, and then it went up over the ridge. And then I said, it's like lightning. I go, did you see that? I'm like, no, it's facing the wrong way. So.
Yeah,
but it was definitely. I thought, could that have been a bird dive bombing? But it was no folded back wings or anything. It was just a white Tic Tac is what it actually.
And when it went up and took off, you didn't see wings come out.
Oh no, but it's accelerated. I think at the end, maybe it knew I was looking at it, but that was just weird. That was very weird.
All right, we're 2+ hours into this show and having fun. Rounding third and heading for home. Guys, I'm going to throw a curveball at you. Sunday, October 31st, Halloween. If you all were still trick-or-treating, Tiffany, I'll start with you since you're the lady of the show and had to deal with us boys tonight. What's your go-to candies that you have to have in your basket or your bag? Or
well, I had this. We hosted another event this month. It ended up to be a spooky forest for Molly's 13th birthday. Oh. Well, I would have invited you, but there was a kid thing. Oh. Yes. Yeah. So we ended up having about, 20, 30 pounds of candy. And for the first time I had ever had a Heath bar. I know it sounds bizarre, but I've never had a Heath bar before. I will tell you, oh my God, I'm telling you right now, my new favorite. That's all I can say. Yeah. Heath bar. Okay. Yeah. So,
but what else besides Heath? You're what are you picking out? To keep.
Twix.
And then Twix. Okay.
And Heath from now on. I think I might go out and buy 20 pounds of Heath.
People who are out there still listening to share with us your favorite candies. But Ben, Tony, if you got your bag full of candy from Halloween, what's the ones you're picking out?
I'd burn the whole bag and I'd go to Godiva and get a chocolate turtles, almond chocolate.
Oh yeah, they have the best. They have the best bonbons too with
candies for Godiva.
It gets a bad rap as candy corn, but I always like candy corn. But my number one, what I love more than anything is a Snickers bar.
I think I really got, when I was a kid, I got in trouble because I threw candy corn. I was throwing them hard, and I think I hit somebody's eye. And I literally thought you just put somebody's eye out with candy.
You're like, cool.
Insert Beavis and Butthead laugh. Okay. So,
What's yours, Kevin?
honestly, I think it's Snickers in that kind of
Liar.
thing.
I know it's it's edibles, like THC edibles. I know it.
Delta 8s make you great.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a gummy. You're right. The gummy thing is a whole new dynamic for me.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Tiffany,
teetering
weren't
this
you
legal.
taking CBDs earlier? You were saying
Exactly.
No.
no.
We'll redact that
Maybe.
well, here you go.
Maybe.
Spoken from a true lady.
It's all about the nuts. Amen. Thank you, Maria.
Nuts and camel toes.
Nuts and camel. We've covered all the.
Why
food
is
groups here
it?
tonight.
Why is it that it always ends up here?
Well, it's because here's the thing, and, and I'm glad you brought that up because I'm going to clarify what our show is about. Sometimes, depending on who you talk to, we get a little bit of grief on what Universal Secrets is all about. First of all, it's a serious and not so serious show. Okay, we find our spots. We had a guest on, and I'll say her name because she was just a guest recently, Kathleen Martin. We had to be a little more serious on that show.
Yeah.
Tonight, not so much. But present company wouldn't have it any other way. We know where we can roll with our guests,
mm-hmm.
and it's infotainment. It's not so serious. Now, I'm the people who really follow me know that.
Do you have followers?
A handful.
Yeah, that's about me too. I probably have like 4 or 5.
Yeah, and their hands are full. So the thing is that I'm a skeptic by nature. Not every freaking light in the sky is I'm bowing down to the ET gods.
Yes.
No, you got to convince me. You got to show me more, and that's why I kind of lean on Ben and Tony because Ben, they're pretty good at calling. They're straight shooters to me, and I follow and buy into their conversation more than a lot of people out there. So, not blowing smoke up our guests ass tonight, but it is what it is. So I don't know.
You gotta laugh. That's what all I say. You gotta just, this world is crazy.
Look at the subject we're dealing with.
Well, yeah.
Along with everything else going on in the world.
But you know what? This subject is infiltrated mainstream news now.
Sure, wow.
Keep that in mind. I mean, you got freaking Tucker Carlson doing series on UFOs.
I wish somebody else would.
Well, I mean, yeah, but just for however you lean, whatever you think.
At least we're talking about it.
Yeah, right. That's all I'm saying. In 60 minutes, when they did, that's how my mother. She knows I do a paranormal show, and clearly she doesn't watch it, but she watches 60 minutes.
Well, for sure, a lot of people that probably didn't watch you before, right? Now that it hits the mainstream media are coming back around like, hey, what's Kevin talking about?
Exactly. He's not. Right.
The weirdest part is when you're at a kid party and people come up to you and they're like, hey, so what's up with these UFOs and aliens? And it's like, what the hell? Why are you asking me? And they're like, we know what you do. And it's like, crap, I thought you were blocked.
You can tell the kids a scary UFO story.
Yeah.
We have a standing maneuver at conferences when there's always that one little bit too far out there person that comes up and grabs you and is like, I've been to Uranus. You've got to believe me. And I'll be like, I believe you. By the way, here's Tony. And then I walk off, because we get some.
How many people do you get that are like, I have an implant right here in my ear, and it's like, that's you've got a tumor. You need to go to the doctor, get it removed.
Let's all right, roll. This is a guy question, Ben, Tony. What's the groupie scene like in the UFO community?
There is none.
I don't think there is one.
No, there's none.
Yeah,
Bullshit. There are groupies.
Well,
we have a great story, but we can't tell.
You mean they're like if they're like in their 70s, maybe?
everyone needs love these days.
You know.
Right?
I've never met a groupie at any UFO
I don't think I have either.
conference.
You're so full of crap, guys. I don't believe you.
Most of the
Tiffany,
people
we got to get you to speak
I
at
brought
a
my guitar
symposium.
with me, maybe.
Most of them are 50 plus, at the conferences.
Okay,
You know, they are getting up.
that's my age bracket. So.
Well, it's sad
Perfect.
you
It's a
don't have
great
one.
dating scene for you, Kevin. We should
Yeah.
totally go.
Yeah,
I can see that happening.
all right. Okay, guys, we are pushing 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
I think
Good
it's
stuff.
That's my bedtime.
Yeah, we're getting there too. Tiffany, fun night to come back after a 4-week layoff with these two cool cats.
I know.
Ben, Tony, share with everyone, how can they connect with you?
We've shared your site where we can purchase your book.
Yeah, it's in the description on our show information. So please, if you're interested in this incident, which is a great story, check out the Amazon link that's in the show description on the Facebook and YouTube links. Share, where else can they connect with you?
Facebook, the UFO guys on Facebook. That's our main platform for all things UFO.
We're not very good with social media, so we don't do all the other fancy stuff.
Yeah, I get into too many political arguments. I gotta ease up on that.
You think, Ben?
Yeah,
I don't do politics. So.
Yeah, it's funny because I had Kevin Randall had me on. He goes, "We are diverse politically, but I won't say who's with who." I'm like, nobody's having any problem figuring out who's with who.
You're right.
Not now.
Like Kevin's a good guy. I like Kevin. There's a lot of good people in the field that, a lot of us are getting long in the tooth, and we've seen some people pass away. So it's, the people that have been around the longest are the ones that you should listen to, that have been in the trenches and done the homework and are good investigators and follow the science. That's where a lot of the future is finding out what's already been done. Don't reinvent the wheel. There are a lot of people that have been down this road, done the investigating. Like with Socorro, I don't know how much more we could do on that. We beat it to death for 5 years, so it's on.
Is his family or anybody from his family still alive?
His
daughter, yeah,
and son also.
His daughter and his grandkids. His son, I believe, is also. But they're pretty private, and the one thing we learned about Lonnie was that even his friends knew that you don't bring it up. If he goes there and starts talking about it, he'll talk about it, but you never ask him about it or anything.
Well, that's respect. That's
yeah.
Well, one thing I can say for people in your audience is you never know when the next one of us is going to kick it. So come out to the conferences.
Yeah.
Yes.
We did that and got to see a lot of people that in some passed, and I'm glad that we went.
Yeah, we got lucky at the MUFON one. We're going to be at Mysteries of Space and Sky in a couple of weekends. I think maybe a week from this weekend in Gambrels, Maryland. That's one of the oldest UFO conferences in the United States.
I've not been to one of these. I really want to go. Tiffany, we got to figure this out.
We
got to go
need
one
to
in the next year, please.
I've only been to one UFO conference, and I had a really good time. It was the Ozark UFO conference in 2016, and I really did enjoy it. It takes a lot of energy, when you're. I'm sort of I don't seem like it, but I am sort of an introvert, and so I'm also a little bit empathic. So it takes a lot of energy, and it takes a lot to, I guess, build up my confidence to go to events like that. It's just a little overwhelming. So I don't know how you do it all the time, but we'll have to give Kevin a chance to go to one. We'll have to do that. We'll have to figure that out.
But, see you in Denver next year.
Denver sounds
maybe
fun.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
And you can go to the CDs you want.
Amen. I know. I love that. Ben, Tony, you guys were awesome tonight. Thank you so much for joining us on Universal Secrets. We really love the story. It's a great one of the go-tos, and if you haven't read the book, get it. I'm going to order mine tonight. It better be signed, because I'm going to, I guess, pay $30 for shipping. So
in the United States, it's
cheap in the United
it's like
Okay.
$4 for shipping.
okay, that sounds better.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for coming on
Appreciate it.
tonight.
Thanks for having us on.
So
Take care.
good. People out there listening, watching, appreciate you hanging out with us. Please, on the videos, give us a like, thumbs up. It means a lot. Subscribe, like our social media pages. There's more of this, next week. So stay tuned. Tiffany, good show after a 4-week layoff. Ben,
Thank
Tony,
you. I
always a good
enjoyed it.
time with you guys. You guys are amazing.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Peace out, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
This has been Universal Secrets.